What's up, Sifters? Welcome to the second episode of GameFace Freestyle. Seemed like you guys liked the first one well enough. Certainly we're covering a lot more topics with this style than we do with the traditional show. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, sort of. I like having the live interaction.
Yeah, I definitely missed that last week too. Just like, especially even during the show, you're really good at keeping like one eye on the chat and one eye on the show. But yeah, I enjoy at the end of the show kind of having that live interaction. People were even better this week about getting us questions beforehand, so we do have a great Q&A for the end of the episode. But I do miss that, kind of having that instantaneous feedback from the viewers on the stream. So we'll be back soon enough. I actually just got an email from Sam, our TriCaster operator, today saying he won't be back till next Friday. So we may actually end up having 3 GameFace Freestyle episodes instead of the 2.
So it's a good thing you like it.
Yeah, it is a good thing you like it. Otherwise we'd be scrambling right now trying to find another TriCaster operator. So it's actually been a pretty eventful week in games, man. Like I went away for the weekend and like all hell broke loose with like a bunch of stuff, and we're going to talk about it on the show. Lots of PlayStation stuff to talk about this week, and we're definitely going to get to it. So let's see. Achievements are live. It seems like you guys all love them. Everyone seems to like them. A lot of people have been asking me how to see how you get each achievement, because a lot of people just go to their profile page and just see them there, and they can see the name of it, but not actually the description on how they got them. And so, pro tip, all you need to do is just hover over your avatar, click Dashboard, and then in the left-hand nav there, just click Achievements. And it'll take you to a page that shows all the achievements that you've earned with a description on how you got them. So. And also there's a thread in the forums where people are collecting them and everyone's kind of comparing what they got. So people can kind of go for the gold if they're trying to get one that they really are into. So
apparently I've clicked on a lot more articles than I thought I did.
Yeah, you don't realize it because you just go on the site and you're just like, click, click, click. You don't realize that like a lot of the content has been tagged to multiple channels. So some people are like, what's shadow play? And it's, you know, it's for reading 500 pieces or watching 500 pieces of stealth-related content. So anytime you've read or watched something for like Deus Ex, that's stealth. That's one of them.
Metal Gear Solid 5.
Right, and you're also getting a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox One and all the platforms that it's on, and whether it's an editorial or a feature. So every piece of content on Sifted isn't just tagged to one thing, it's tagged to multiple things. So you can kill several birds with one stone just by looking at one piece of content. So keep digging, folks. There's a ton. I only have, by the way, 28 achievements. I'm level 28, and there's still like I still have 100 plus to go. So don't fret. If you guys are level 10 or whatever, man, you've got a whole world of achievements in front of you. So we intentionally put them in tiers or whatever, so that you know, there'll be something to attain as you get higher. Like I said, I'm level 28, and I only have 28 of them. So lots more to uncover, Sifters. So with that, let's get to the show. We're going to kick things off with Sony, because Sony was just like the world this week. I mean, the world. Tons of huge stories were breaking over the week, and not related really to Gamescom at all, which is a funny thing.
Probably related to that upcoming event, though.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely related. So the biggest story is PlayStation 4 Slim, something that I know you and I both assumed was going to happen. You could have assumed it was going to happen eventually, because I can't remember the last PlayStation console or handheld that didn't eventually get a smaller, sleeker, more energy efficient iteration. And so that's what we're getting here. And at first the news broke. I was actually out of town this weekend when all this happened. Had no idea. I was in Las Vegas, where you don't know anything that's going on outside of Las Vegas.
I don't even know what time it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so I come back, and holy cow, like at first I saw the story and I was like, oh, this is another fake. And I'm like, I'm not getting fooled like I did with like the whole Wii U controller or with the whole NX controller thing. And then somebody puts up like a video of them like booting it up. And then there was an unboxing video. This is insane, Matt, by the way. Like
that is some serious stuff to get out that early.
How did these units go out to retail? I mean, it's either they went out to retail early, which leads me to believe that Sony had planned this whole thing where at their September event in New York, they say, hey, here's the Slim, and it's in stores right now, and you can go get it.
Yeah.
Pulling like a Saturn from E3 type deal, if you remember that.
Risky.
Yeah, risky. And so, you know, it's crazy that these people have their hands on these things, and Sony hasn't even announced it yet. And then, so somebody got them, sold it on some eBay knockoff website, and it turns out they got the console. It works. It boots. I've never seen anything like this before, where like it's never been announced at all by the platform holder, and it's out in the wild.
Now that is quite a truck to fall off of. I've never seen that before.
It's
not before
insane.
announcement.
It's
sure.
insane. Never before have I seen this before. And Sony is trying to be the internet police, so it's going around trying to take down all the YouTube videos, all the stuff on Vimeo, and all the other.
That always works.
Well, it didn't work because I snagged the unboxing video. Because I knew it was going to happen. I know how Sony is very vigilant about it, and so I anticipated that stuff would get taken down. Sure enough, it did. So we reposted it for you guys on Sifted for people so they could see it if they weren't, a bloodhound like tracking the news that day. So, first of all, what do you think of the Slim, Matt?
It's fine. I mean, I won't get one. I'm going to wait for the Neo.
Yeah.
My existing Fat works fine.
Yeah.
But it looks nice. I usually like the slim redesigns of consoles. Like I can't really remember the last one I didn't like.
I didn't like the original design of the PlayStation 3.
No.
Anyway.
No.
So I was kind of happy to see that thing. I mean, I love it now because I have the fat version, and they're like people are clamoring to try to find those now. I'm glad I have it. But as far as the designs, I definitely liked the slimmer versions of it that came out. They put out, 2 more versions of the PlayStation 3? Were there 3 versions total of PlayStation 3? I think there were.
Maybe. I remember the first Slim. I don't remember the second one, but I haven't really paid attention in a while.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they just end up like, well, here's one with a 1 terabyte hard drive or whatever. They just boost the hard drive size. But this one, they didn't really do that at all.
Yeah, it's just sort of a different shell.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's more energy efficient or whatever, but they had already kind of stealth released a more energy efficient version of the PlayStation 4 already. Because I found that out whenever I tripped over the HDMI cable and ruined my first one.
Right.
I then went and bought like a Last of Us bundle, and I realized that it was a completely different model number on the back of the box and on the serial number on the system. So they had done a subtle change already, but this is obviously far more drastic, cosmetic.
Yeah, they're always running change. Like I found that out the hard way when my launch GameCube died, and I went to get a replacement, and I got it home, and there was no digital out.
Yeah.
They'd removed the digital out, which is like, that's what I use for the component cables. And I'm like, I ain't playing these games not in progressive, so I had to go back and I returned it to Best Buy, and I had to look through all the systems they had to find one that had the digital out.
The DOL 001 or whatever it was. Yeah.
So that happens a lot. They change the systems, and they don't tell us.
Yeah, I think Nintendo may have messaged that. I can't remember, actually.
I think when it happened, I Googled it, and there had been some, but it's like no one really cared.
It wasn't, reported. Because most people's GameCubes hadn't died. Although my launch GameCube died, too. I started getting discrete errors.
Yeah, mine wasn't. My GameCube, I went through 2 GameCubes and 3 PlayStation 2s. And the original Xbox still going strong.
Oh, yeah. That thing was a brick.
But actually, I bet apparently there was a capacitor for the clock that leaks. And if you haven't looked at yours in years, it's probably leaked and destroyed the motherboard.
Oh, really?
You're supposed to go in and break it off and remove it.
Who's going to do that?
Someone who uses that system all the time, I guess. But mine's in storage somewhere, and I've never gotten around. So at some point, I got to go get my original Xbox, open it up, and see if it's ruined.
Yep. So the PS4 Slim, you like the more rounded look of it instead of the angular
I kind of
look?
like it. I mean, I don't dislike either one.
I mean, to me, it's exactly the same design with rounded corners.
Right.
Maybe a little skinnier.
Yeah,
maybe a little.
There are places. I have kept it on the floor at times. I kept it on the floor because I have hardwood, and when it was the original model was having overheating problems before I sent it in for the fan to get fixed. Sometimes I wouldn't realize it was there, and I'd hit it with my foot. And
that's how I ruined mine.
And the point would
I tripped over the cable.
But it's pointy, so the corner's pointy. It would like you gouge into your skin. And so I'm like, maybe the rounded corners are a nice safety measure. But that's cool.
Like most of the people on Sifted did not like the new design.
That's fine. I mean, I'm not gonna it's not like I need to replace mine with that one because it's so much cooler looking. It's that's cool. Sure. What's the Scorpio look like? Not the Scorpio, the Neo.
The Neo.
So I do kind of want to. I guess this is just going to be the standard PlayStation from now on.
Yeah.
So like if someone isn't going to buy a Neo, this is what they're going to have. I kind of like, it's a weird thing, but I kind of like the idea that like if you have one of the old ones, it sort of proves you were in before. Before it was cool a little bit.
Well, what I did too was whenever I got my replacement one, so I went and bought one because I needed to have a system to use for work purposes, and then I sent the old one in to get repaired, and it cost like $100 and whatever. And when I got that one back, then I sold my old one, which was brand new now, because they ended up completely replacing it and not just like refurbishing it or whatever. But I took the piano like sleeve off the top, so now you can pop the sleeve off and get into like the hard drive and whatnot. Well, in the new systems, it was matte, and in the launch systems, it was like glossy.
Yeah.
And so I kept like the glossy shield and put it on my new console, and then put the matte one on the one I was selling, and then sold it. So, but to your point earlier, you're like with the Neo. I mean, is there a point to this thing?
Yeah,
I mean, it depends on when the Neo is released, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I guess it's just a more compact and more efficient. Maybe it helps with the price drop in comparison to the Neo. Just it's cheaper to make a smaller thing that uses less materials.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it makes sense from like a manufacturing business standpoint. I don't think it's going to entice anybody in that doesn't already have one necessarily. It's just like, this is how we're going to produce this hardware now.
I guess in one way it's kind of encouraging, because if people are fearing right now that, once the Neo comes out, that, I own
like the
base
out
PS4. I mean, this is a pretty clear sign that once Neo comes out, they're still going to be supporting the
pretty
base
good proof they really intend to sell both systems, actively.
Right. And that's good news. Yeah. But to your point, it would be hard for me to tell somebody to buy a PlayStation 4 right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're just in love with the rounded corners.
Yeah. But I mean, in 2 weeks we're going to know hopefully we're going to know what's up with Neo. I hope this whole event wasn't just for the PS4 Slim.
Right. Well, I guess the main thing is like if the Neo turns out to be like $600.
Right.
Like then obviously this PS4 Slim has a very important place.
Yeah.
In the sales plan.
For sure. I don't think Neo will be that much, though.
I hope not.
It could.
Could be. Yeah, absolutely could be.
Is no stranger to overpricing its hardware.
I know how they won't announce it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have a feeling it's probably going to come in around the launch price of the original PlayStation 4. It'll probably be $399, something like that.
I could see $450.
Yeah.
Like you could push it to $450 maybe, but I feel like you're in a weird zone when, especially if you're going to push it alongside the VR, because that's why this thing is going to exist,
for sure,
obviously. Yeah. That puts you at the $800 price point.
Yeah.
And now you're a Vive.
Yeah.
Not including the PC hardware to run the Vive, so you're still cheaper. But
I don't see a lot of people like saying, I'm really interested in VR, so I'm going to go buy a rig and the Vive. Like, I think the people who are going to buy a Vive already have a rig that at the very least they could probably upgrade with a video card and some RAM and hopefully get into that save zone with it. So I don't know that I see like that total, like, I'm just going to, rich people perhaps. But the average consumer I don't think is going to be like, you know what, I'm totally cool with like spending $2,000 to play VR.
Building a rig for VR is a little crazy. I mean, there's not enough meat there.
Because chances are that person too is not going to use that desktop for anything but VR. Because if they don't have a desktop,
if they don't have it for gaming already, what are they doing?
Exactly, like they wouldn't have one. So
I mean, I'm into the VR thing. I want to get, I have PlayStation VR, ordered and ready to go, and I will, frankly,
I'm getting excited, by the way.
Oh yeah, frankly, I think that like that's where a lot of my VR multiplayer gaming will be, because I think most people I know who will get a VR headset will get a PlayStation VR one because it's A, cheaper, and B, they already have the platform for it.
Yeah.
So I expect like most of my Star Trek bridge crew will probably be PS4.
Yeah.
Because of that. But I'm going to be honest, like the PS Neo. Like the top thing in my head about buying a PlayStation Neo is I want to see Horizon Zero Dawn run like a beast.
Yeah, like 120 frames a second.
Yeah, if it was just like let's see VR run a little better, the Neo wouldn't interest me. But the fact that it apparently gives you a boost to everything you play, starting in October with the release in October, that's as a PC gamer, that's attractive. It's like,
Oh, for sure.
Once you start talking, it's like, oh, just pay this little extra money and you'll optimize your gaming experience performance even more. I'm just like, all right, you got me. Like that's a worthy trade-off for me.
So also a new permutation or combination of the controller with the PlayStation 4 Slim.
Maybe one that doesn't break once a year. That'd be nice.
So it's got a light bar, almost a light strip above the touchpad on the center top of the controller. Any clue why that would be, Matt? I mean, I'm assuming it's something to do with PlayStation VR, but...
No, it's the same as the light strip on the light thing on the controller.
Right, but it still has that, though.
Yeah, so
it did eliminate that for the other new one.
It's so the camera can track it. Yeah, it's VR or the camera.
So I'm wondering if PlayStation VR...
It's the same tech as on the top of a Move controller.
I get that. But I'm saying, why did they add the extra strip now, when before they just had the light in the front?
Oh, is the light gone?
No, it's still there. So it still has the one on the front, the big one.
Okay.
And now it also has that little strip, a little strip across the top of the touch screen. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
why they would
that's
do that.
why I'm
well, especially because like when I heard it, I hadn't seen the controller, so I guess when you said strip, I thought like, oh, they got rid of the light everybody hates and just change it to a tiny little strip to make it like no, they've added more of it. Okay, so now the thing's going to be in my eye.
Right.
Is what you're saying?
Yeah, it will be. You'll be able to see it on the face of the controller.
That's annoying.
I'm wondering if, like, the base PlayStation 4 controller, they're having problems tracking it with PlayStation VR, and they needed to add...
That could be, because I know...
Or could it be because maybe some people play and they have the controller
they hold
kind
it
of
like
facing
that.
Down?
Yeah, I think that might be it.
And if you think about it, I don't know if you've ever noticed when you've tried PlayStation VR, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, I'm kind of slack-jawed when I play it, because you kind of have this, like, especially at first, you have this kind of feeling of awe. So you kind of do relax and kind of just have the controller.
That is a good point. I hold it probably down enough that like your camera would probably have a hard time.
That's the only thing I can figure.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Any ideas?
Hopefully they make this clear.
Yeah.
You know, like I hope that, explain your changes at your event. So
well, at least there are still some mysteries left.
Yeah.
For the Slim, at least with the controller, anyway.
Yeah, well, the next item, I think, surprised me more.
Oh, yeah. So, PlayStation Now coming to the PC.
Yeah.
So you will be able to play PlayStation games on your PC. They also announced a dongle that will let your DualShock 4 work wirelessly with your PC. What do you think about this, Matt?
I think... more and more, it's looking like the Pactor future is coming to pass.
It is totally, man. It really is.
Like this is basically a beach landing.
Yeah.
Essentially, like this is a beachhead. A future-proofing beachhead.
Yeah, it is. Because we've been talking on the show before about how Sony's kind of watching Microsoft able to expand its software offerings to new audiences. And how we thought Sony was kind of stuck in this hole where it was unable to do this. And we had mentioned Gaikai and PlayStation Now as a possibility. Well, looks like Sony was way ahead of us on that one.
And it's going to be, here if you're a PC only person, here's how you're going to play Bloodborne.
Yeah. Or
that's good news.
Eventually. Because one thing I would say is if you look at, like a couple sites did lists of like the 10 best PlayStation Now games to play on your PC when it launches or whatever. And you look at the 10 best games on PlayStation Now.
And they're not,
Well, there's like 6 or 7
like
really good games.
And some stuff, yeah.
And Uncharted 2 is like the newest Uncharted on there. And then like the last 3 were kind of like indie games.
Right.
So the selection on PlayStation Now right now, redundant, is a little anemic. Putting it lightly, I think.
So it's a little bit of PlayStation later, but like
there you go.
I think if they can expand the business on, because there's a lot of PC gamers that I'm sure, well, they'd like to play some of these Sony exclusives, but they don't want to own a console.
Right.
And I think, PlayStation Now can expand its business on PC to that degree. I think that gives them more incentive to put more stuff on PlayStation Now than just the PlayStation users give them. Because PlayStation users are already giving them money in various forms for other stuff on those platforms, whereas this is their sole revenue source for PC gamers.
Yeah.
So if you can entice the PC gamers to give you more and more money through what you're giving them on PlayStation Now, that's really good for all PlayStation Now users.
It's a slippery slope for Sony, though.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to offer, like, the PlayStation 4 launch games.
Oh
on
yeah, you're not
PlayStation
gonna get day and date by any. This is 2 years probably.
I mean,
after.
right now we're looking at The Last of Us is on there. That is probably the most recent AAA game from the PlayStation
and that's what,
published.
3 years old?
I think it's a little older than that.
In 2013?
The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming up on 3 years of the PlayStation 4 at this point. Last of Us came out the last year of PlayStation 3.
Wasn't that 2013?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah,
and then the PlayStation 4 remake was a year after that.
Right, right. Or wait. No, the PlayStation 4 remake came out the first year of, I think it's 2012 for The Last of Us.
Was it?
Either way, we're looking at the 3-4 year window there, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But I wonder if this is a sliding scale where Sony's going to draw the line and say, no PlayStation 4
I can't
games.
remember if we reviewed that game or not.
But here's the thing though, with the way hardware is going now, with no generations, so it's not like they can say, well, we're not going to put PlayStation 4 games on PlayStation Now, because I don't see the PlayStation 4 ever really ending. Because we're going to go into Neo, and is that still the PlayStation 4? And then they'll probably do another hardware upgrade after that. Is that the PlayStation 4? So I'm guessing they're probably going to go just more chronologically with like whatever year it was. Because you don't want to cannibalize sales of the software or cannibalize sales of your hardware by putting that stuff on PC too early.
But eventually you'll get to play it, which is...
I mean...
Because Sony published stuff does not come to PC.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the way you can look at it is 3 or 4 years from now, you'll play The Last Guardian on PC.
Well, how about this? When it launches, you'll be able to play Demon's Souls.
Yeah.
And a lot of PC players have not gotten to play
point.
Demon's Souls because they never had a PlayStation.
Is Demon's Souls on PlayStation now?
I believe it is.
Is it?
I'll be honest, I have never even touched PlayStation Now outside of like some press demos.
I got like a
Because I don't need it. I still have a PlayStation 3.
Me too. I checked it out just to check it out
Yeah.
because I just felt like I needed to. I got like a free 1 month trial or something like that, and it works pretty well. Like I wouldn't play any Twitch-based games on it.
It's too much lag to play. You know, like Uncharted works pretty well because like Uncharted kind of has that. It's a slower game in terms of reaction time, but like you can't play like MLB The Show on it.
No, oh my gosh, no. Or any fighting game on it.
No.
Like you could.
You could, but
if
you lose.
you want to be competitive at it. I mean, do they even have online play on PlayStation Now?
I don't know.
I probably should have done more research. My apologies before we even talked about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like probably they do.
I feel like probably they don't.
Like that would be a weird thing not to have.
It would be, but it also seems pretty difficult to pull
I mean,
off.
I don't know how you would play Uncharted 2 multiplayer on PlayStation Now. That feels like it would be like playing underwater twice.
Because that felt a little sluggish to me playing it on the console.
Yeah. I don't know. It's I think it's a positive move.
Oh, I think it's beyond positive. In fact, if I were Sony, I would probably jack that up to like a 2 year window before I put the stuff out.
Oh yeah.
Because the other thing that it does too is that it could also act as a Trojan horse to incentivize people to buy your console. Mm-hmm. So they're like, oh wow, like I haven't, there's a lot of PC players who don't buy consoles. So they start getting a taste of some of the stuff that PlayStation's putting out on its platforms. Suddenly they're like, I don't want to wait 2 years to play the sequel to this game that I just played the first version of. Like, it could actually increase sales of PlayStation hardware if they do it correctly and they're smart about it. So I think no matter what, this is a great idea. Probably should have done it a long time ago. I'm sure there were technical hurdles they needed to overcome to make it happen or whatever.
And I'm sure this was part of the plan when they bought Gaikai originally.
Yeah, you would think. Because just the way things are going now, it's like, really, consoles are going away. I hate to say it, man. It makes me sad to think about it. It's been part of my life since I was like 5 years old. But it's the march of technology. It stops for nobody.
Yep.
It definitely doesn't stop for console gamers. So we'll see. Another Sony story. Again, this week Sony and they didn't announce hardly any of this on their own.
No,
The PlayStation Now on PC was actually broken by a leak. And then PlayStation, I think like 5 or 6 hours later, was just like, screw it, and put it up on PlayStation. Or no, I think PlayStation Blog accidentally leaked it early.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, their own service leaked their information.
That's usually Capcom.
Somebody's fired, I'm guessing.
That's usually something that Capcom does.
Yeah.
Capcom Unity used to leak, accidentally put up blog posts too early a lot.
Yeah, you're right.
So, somebody over there had a lot of trouble with the whole AM, PM thing.
Or time zone differences, that can do it sometimes. Like, it all depends on what your admin runs on, whatever the internal. We had problems with that when we first launched Sifted. Like, figuring out what the internal clock on the website was.
Or just like remember all the entire roster of Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 leaked because someone just put all the character pictures on the blog. It wasn't posted,
right.
but it was in the the image file library that anyone could just go look at.
Yeah.
If you knew the URL, and like, of course, I guess someone is always trolling every company's blog to find anything they put on there, and instantly they were all up. I remember texting Seth and being like, "That's a pretty cool roster you got there." He's like, "Shut up!" Like,
yeah,
it's just like he's like, "I have so many things to say."
Even our traffic on Sith is at a point now where if you put something up, someone sees it.
Yep.
Like no matter what time of day or night, if you make a mistake and something goes up before it's supposed to, there's already a one up. Like instantly, somebody sees it and likes it. So, and the other part too is that if your website goes through like daylight savings or whatever. Sometimes your servers aren't set up to account for that, so you think you're publishing something at like midnight, you're really publishing it at like 11 p.m. or whatever. So a bunch of hoops you got to jump through. So anyway, what leaked? Another topic of Sony this week: PlayStation Plus going up in price. And the first thing I want to say about this is, if they're going to increase the price of PlayStation Plus, they need to fix the servers. I mean, I downloaded Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. And it probably took like 6 hours to download the game.
Wow.
I mean,
that's
it
a long
was
time.
Creeping. And even Madden's only, I think it's like 10 gigs or something like that. And it took like 2 or 3 hours to download.
I guess maybe.
And I have a great connection. Like my speeds.
See, that's surprising because I downloaded I had to re-download a couple things recently. One was The Witcher 3, and that's like 13 gigs.
Yeah.
It took like 40 minutes. I mean,
really?
Yeah. Usually I have really good connection speeds on PlayStation 4, but I haven't downloaded anything other than No Man's Sky on PlayStation 4 recently, which wasn't very big at all, so I didn't even notice. And like, I've had a bunch of people say to me, "It's like, what did Sony do to the download servers? Because it takes forever now."
Yeah, I've had problems the last month.
You are not the only one who has said something like that, especially because Deus Ex is it's like 17 gigs, and then there's like another like 17 gigs that you download as a data download after that. I mean, it's a gigantic download.
It's a big one. Yeah, I had to delete like 5 games off of my system to download it. But it's so weird too how that works. It's like I had deleted way more space than I needed for Deus Ex, and it wouldn't let me download it. But so then I cleared like another game off of it, downloaded Mankind Divided, and then I was able to download Madden, no problem. I don't know if it accounts for it knows there's already a patch sitting behind it that needs to be downloaded too. I have no idea.
I don't know. Usually you need about double the space of what you're downloading so it can install and not delete itself while it's doing that. And something as large as Deus Ex might be reserving a lot more space than it needs for that. I don't know.
PlayStation Plus new price. The internet freaked out.
Another $10 a year. Woo!
It's $10. Did you see the Mega 64 thing that we curated yesterday about it?
I saw the link, but I didn't watch it.
You should watch it. It's really good. It's probably one of their best ones they've done.
I mean, it started another round of rah, paying for multiplayer, rah. Multiplayer is not free on consoles anymore, folks.
Yeah.
Live with it. Get over it.
Wait, on the Wii U it is.
Yeah, well.
If there were multiplayer
if there's anything you want to play on, I mean,
yeah,
Splatoon and Smash Brothers are free.
And Mario Kart, yeah. Well, at launch they had some stuff, like Black Ops was there at launch and whatever.
I'd love to see the server load on that one now.
Oh, I bet. I bet you there's
Who wants to play a private game?
I bet you there's 115 people playing that game right now.
But look, to me, I mean, sometimes I forget that the multiplayer is part of PlayStation Plus. To me, it's worth it as just a service. The free games you get, plus some of the discounts are ridiculous. You easily save $60 worth of money over the course of a year with that service.
One of the big criticisms that people have brought up over the last couple of days is that the free games on PlayStation Plus have really fallen off a cliff.
That is true.
And I would 1,000% agree with that.
That is true. You used to get big I mean, it was later. It was 8-9 months later. Yeah. But when they first started this, I was getting stuff like Okami, and Remember Me, and Binary Domain. I mean, even if they're not the greatest games ever, it was a lot of them were major release games that I didn't play.
Do great.
Didn't do great, but it was kind of one of those oh yeah, I did kind of want to play that, and I played several of those because I got them free and would never have paid for them maybe I would have bought them for $4 in a Steam sale, But it was yeah, you got real, it was usually like one major release from about 9 months ago and one indie game. And now it's just indie game extravaganza all year.
Yeah. And they load up on Vita stuff, and a lot of people don't even have Vitas.
Yeah.
And,
I have a Vita, but I don't know where it is.
Yeah. And then you look at Microsoft. Microsoft's still knocking it out of the park with the Xbox Live games with gold. I mean, this coming month is another amazing month. Mm-hmm. Like, they're giving you, still AAA games.
They did have free. A good, Sony's one this month was good. Rebel Galaxy for free is a good deal. But again, it's still like
a lot of people don't care about indie games.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of people who just do not play side-scrolling whatever.
Well, also it's like if you want to calculate it that way, like Remember Me, yeah, it didn't cost $60 by the time it hit free on PlayStation Plus, but it was it's still a full price retail game at one point,
right?
Whereas your full price for Rebel, you're getting about $30 worth of games for free each month as opposed to like $100 now.
Yeah.
And that's a big value difference, I would say.
And there might even be a little bit of a hangover from the whole PSN hack. Finally got two-step up.
Yeah! Ooh. Welcome
to
the 2010s, Sony. How you doing?
And so, I mean...
Also, speaking of that kind of thing, Funcom, their forums got hacked.
Yeah,
so if you have a forum account on Funcom, change all your passwords.
Yeah. I don't know why they hack these things. It's like, what information could they get from my Funcom account?
They could get a password if they can dehash it. It would be which is possible. They get a lot of your information they can use to kind of social engineer other accounts. I mean, a lot of times what you're doing is you're digging through, you're finding emails, names, birth dates, addresses, whatever, and then you're cross-referencing other things that have been hacked to try to get into their bank account.
Right.
And if you can get their password, it's like a lot of people use the same password for a lot of different things.
Yeah, here's pro tip, people: use a different
password for
your
everything.
Bank. Well, especially for your bank account.
Well, yeah,
your bank account, you should have a password that you only use for your bank account. Period.
Yeah,
that'll save your butt. After that, you don't have to worry about anything else.
And but this one this one I think that one only happened because they use vBulletin, and vBulletin is super vulnerable anyway.
Isn't that what NeoGAF's on?
Yeah, no one's ever hit NeoGAF.
That's a surprise.
And then of course, but the other thing is the game accounts are separate from the forum accounts.
Oh, right,
so I think a lot of people have game accounts, but they don't have a forum account there. So a lot of people are confused.
Right.
They're like, wait, so I've never gone to the forum. And then, of course, the forums got taken down, so you couldn't check if you had a forum account. So there was a lot of confusion over that, but that's just if you've done Funcom stuff, you should probably change your passwords.
Yeah, but I think just, it all kind of started with that, with everyone getting all their information hacked on PSN. There's just been kind of this negative connotation towards it. And then, like you said, at first you could play multiplayer for free on PlayStation, and that's always a problem. Anytime you give somebody something for free and you try to charge them for it, it's tough.
Yep.
And so people are already, there's a little animosity built up over that. I used to play multiplayer for free on my PlayStation 3. Now I have to pay for it. But
to be fair,
but there was a caveat that it's cheaper than Xbox.
Right. Well, to be fair, when multiplayer, when all that was free on PlayStation Network needed to be free.
Oh, it was
because
it was garbage.
Awful.
And I could argue the same thing with Nintendo Online. It's pretty good now.
Look, Nintendo, until you let me download my purchases without calling you, on a new system, I'm not going to pay for that. Come on.
Well, the Wii, its online wasn't great, and it was free, and it's maybe now to a place where they can charge without people freaking out too much.
Yeah, but Xbox Live kind of turned console online into a service, more than a function. So much so
that Microsoft quotes those numbers for its monthly sales reports. It doesn't say how many consoles it sold. It's this is how many subscribers we have to Xbox Live this month.
And frankly, if you're Sony, you're like, why not?
Yeah.
Dude, clearly people will do it, so why not do it?
And I saw a lot of people say, "Oh, that's it. I'm canceling right away." And do you believe they're going to do that?
Maybe. I don't know. $10 a year is what?
It's nothing. Well, that was kind of the whole point of the Mega 64 thing. Everybody watched that, by the way. If you haven't watched it, you can search for it.
I pay almost that much for a milkshake in this city. I don't. It's
Yeah, look, we live in LA.
It's expensive here.
It's expensive here. In some places, $10 is a lot of money to some people. But still, at the end of the day, $10 is working 1 hour at a minimum wage job in most places in the United States at this point. to me, it's a lot to do about nothing.
Yeah, it's spread out over a year. I think
Go figure. The internet freaked out over something.
It's not really anything I'm not going to notice.
Yeah.
Spread over the course of a year.
Well, the other thing too is you can just go buy your subscription now.
Yeah.
And it'll stack.
And also, you can always. I mean, there are deals on that kind of thing intermittently. Yeah. I don't think I've ever paid full price for PlayStation Plus. There's always some weird sale for like $30 for
initially.
Maybe, but like since then, I think I've always found at some point during the year, some like Amazon or somebody does a sale for like $35, and I just buy that and put the code in.
eBay for some reason. I think people get like stolen lots of those cards. Because the last time I got one, I got it for $30, and they didn't send me the card. They literally in an email, the guy sent me a photo of the card with the thing scratched off with the code, and then I looked at the photo and put the code in, and it worked. It was fine. That
happened with, I bought codes for Darkrai, one of the mythical Pokemon that I missed on Pokemon X and Y, and the guy just sent me an email with 2 codes in it, and they worked. I mean, he's like, I'll send you the cards if you want, but I know that's not what we're here for. I'm like, that's true. You got it. It's cool.
I want the Pokemon. I don't want that. I'm not giving it to somebody. Yeah.
So, it seems pretty common. I've done that a few times, and I've never gotten ripped off by them. So I don't know where these guys get these cards, but they seem to be legit.
But I would say that if Sony is going to jump its price up, it does need to provide competitive free games in comparison to Xbox Live. Because it really, over the last year plus, honestly...
More than a year, I would say.
Its games have not been comparable
to what you get
in Xbox Live.
I would say almost since the launch of the PlayStation 4. They really transitioned to a whole...
4 or 5 months were pretty good.
Yeah, but they've really transitioned to kind of using the free games as like a showcase for their indie stuff.
Yeah.
And that's cool, but every once in a while you got to throw me a AAA bone.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah, we haven't really been getting that on PlayStation, so...
So, really, The Last of Us Remastered should have been one of those by now. I think.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean everyone is going to
buy that.
They're
giving it away for free already.
It's already
in
the console.
It's packed in. I mean, and that, by the way, was just a code.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a hard copy of the game. It was a little
just
card
a code on
with
a card.
The code on it. That would honestly be a good way to kick off the month with the new price.
Yeah,
yes, that would definitely keep people, at least some people, from complaining.
It would send a message.
But then I wouldn't be surprised if the next month it went right back to the way it was.
Right after, if you like pixel art, boys.
Sony just needs to remember that when you increase the price, the expectations change. Yeah. It's no different with any
product. And since that is the most visible service, you're not going to be able to get away with but now you have 2-step verification. Like, gee, thanks. Now you're almost competent. Well done. Yeah. There'll be more discounts for Plus subscribers on the sales we do. It's the most tangible rubber meets the road element of that service is the free games you get every month, and that's where you need to prove yourself to me for that extra $10 a year.
And that's what people brought up the most on that story on Sifted was the free games. Like, some people are saying, I don't play multiplayer. I only had it because of the free games, and the games aren't to scratch, so I'm out. And in that case, I don't blame you at all. I would do the same exact thing if I didn't play multiplayer, but I do. And for me, just playing multiplayer, even with the extra $10, it's worth it for your service. Because, let's be honest, PSN is pretty much as good as Xbox Live at this point as far as all the other services are concerned.
For the most part. Give it another, another OS upgrade maybe.
Yeah.
Although, actually, no, I'd say PlayStation 4 is ahead of Xbox One in that regard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Xbox One is, slow.
Neither of them are up to par with the 360.
No, it's true. It's totally true, which makes no sense whatsoever. All right, let's move on. Whole lot of Sony right there. But, man, for a company not having an event in a week and having this many big stories, of which really only one of them they announced first, that's pretty crazy.
I hope they got some real info up their sleeve for next week.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise it could be a total buzzkill. They're talking,
not next week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, their pre-TGS presser, they announced that. I'm assuming that's just going to be a rerun of whatever happens in New York. But regardless of all this stuff being leaked, I'm still really excited for the event in New York. I'm holding out hope that the Neo's going to be there. Don't know.
Expectations in check. I'm ready.
I think GameStop did say on its financial call today that they are expecting a new console from Sony to launch in September, which at this point is probably the Slim.
Could mean the Slim.
The Slim, yeah. I highly doubt Neo's coming in September, although that would be a nice double whammy, wouldn't it?
That'd be a surprise.
If Neo but I would guess though, if Neo were following the same schedule as the Slim, that wherever
October
they got that,
wouldn't be against
it wouldn't.
Total believability.
But I also think that we would have also seen the Neo already
right.
too, because wherever they got that Slim from, they probably would have also been able to get a Neo from, and so chances are it's coming at least a little bit later. So we'll see. Next, we're going to talk about Madden NFL 17. Don't freak out. I'm not going to talk about it for 20 minutes. I get it. I get it. A lot of you don't care about sports games, but there are some people that do.
We got way too many Europeans watching this to talk about the NFL that long. Come on.
Well, the truth of the matter is that there are a couple of requests to talk about Madden in the thread asking for questions for the show. So I'm going to talk about it briefly. I will be doing a game eval for it. May probably do a little more in-depth of a thing on Geif maybe for it. But I've been playing it a good bit, and so I do want to share my opinion because some people only watch GameFace and don't watch all the other stuff. So, first of all, I don't know where all the people that are reviewing this game are getting off saying that this game is a clear step forward from last year's game. Like, I just don't see it. As far as like what EA is marketing as the big improvements, they're saying the running game has been drastically improved. They're saying there are big changes to franchise mode. You know, big, I guess, is a subjective term, like, because to me they're not that big. They're things. One of them is kind of big, in that you can play a game and only play the big moments from that game in franchise, whereas before you'd have to play the whole game, and you can set the clock to be short or whatever. You still have to play every play. Now it just kind of zaps you in and says, "Hey, here is a goal line stand. Here you are at the end of the first half, 20 yards out, trying to score with a minute left," and that's kind of cool. It just thrusts you into those big moments, and you can get through a franchise like season a lot quicker. The problem is the franchise just still doesn't have anything in it compelling enough to make you want to keep playing it. It's like once you win the Super Bowl the first time and you see the cinema of you with the Lombardi Trophy, like there's just no point in playing it again. And this is the problem with Madden. And in all honesty, a lot of sports games is that they're going in the completely wrong direction. So NBA 2K has done a great job with this franchise mode because it's integrated like this narrative, this story. And it's a little hokey, and it's a little busted, and it's not up to the quality of the rest of the game, I guess is where I'm trying to put it. But they're taking steps so that eventually they do get to a place where you are playing kind of a sports RPG. And, you know, your on-field performance, and you do get this in Madden. Like, as you play your franchise, like, after a play happens, you'll see a little, like, +1 above a player's head. But, like,
the show is good about that, too.
It is good about that. But with Madden, it's like grinding up your players is so slow because you're, like, grinding, like, one ability at a time. So it just, like, takes forever. And so the incentive to, like, keep playing franchise mode, that's it. Is to, like, get your players, like, there's no payoff for all of it. Online, I've played 8 online games. I've actually finished 3 of them because it's just the age-old problem with Madden where you start beating somebody, they just quit, or they start griefing, and they'll just start pause, unpause, pause, like trying to annoy you to the point where you quit. Because you're like, how long is this guy going to do this?
That doesn't work on you, I assume.
It does not, no. Because I'm playing it sitting next to my computer. So when they start pulling this crap, I just go back to working and doing something else. And then I'll wait until they finally give up. And I will say that there are some fail-safes in Madden. Like, you're only allowed to pause the game 5 times before you get booted. But 5 times...
I love that is such a common thing that fail-safe is in there.
Yeah.
That must have been a long-running problem.
Yeah, it is a long-running problem. I mean, it's been happening for forever. That's still 5 times. And they can leave it paused for, like, a minute or 2. So you start adding that up, like, it's still very easy for somebody to grief you to a point where you just give up and you're like, I don't care, I'll lose the game. But otherwise, like, the netcode's good. I didn't really have any lag or anything like that. It's just the people that you play against that's the problem. On the field, last year their big emphasis was the passing game, and they created this thing called an aggressive catch that was, like, completely overpowered. Basically, you just hit a button, and, like, your receiver would just go up and muscle the ball away. They've toned that down a little bit, and they've adjusted the zone defenses a little bit, but every year they say this stuff, and after I play like 3 or 4 games, I can't tell any difference in the stuff. So their big emphasis this year was the running game, and I see absolutely no difference in it at all. Like, blockers still will just completely miss guys. Like, they'll choose the wrong guy to block. You'll have like a wide open rushing lane, and some dude will just come running in and just completely shrug off a block and just lay you out. It just feels like completely random. And also the way the game is set up, if you play as a team that's not good, you really have no chance, because it's not like your play can elevate that team to make that team better. Like the Cleveland Browns, like, it's just all in the numbers and the algorithms. So basically they're like, he's not supposed to complete this pass by the numbers. So you have a guy 3 feet away, you throw him the ball, and it just bounces off his face. Like, they need to figure out some way to fix that. I don't know what that fix is, but it's not my job to figure out how to fix it. I'm not the person making the game. I'm just the person criticizing the game. So on the field, I really don't see many changes at all. Graphically, I really see no changes. One thing I would say that's much better is the commentary. Here's something really, really cool that happened to me. I was playing somebody online. They were playing as the Tennessee Titans. And the first 2 games of the preseason this year, both of their running backs went off. There's this guy named West who's like a rookie, and DeMarco Murray who's been in the league for forever. Both those guys went off in their first 2 preseason games. So this game starts. I'm playing the Steelers, of course. They're playing the Titans. The Titans come out, and they start talking about those 2 preseason games that just happened like last week. They're like, well, these guys, the first 2 preseason games of the year, these guys came out and ran roughshod. And I was like, oh, my God. Like, they are seeding the game with, like, recent commentary of stuff that just happened, like, last week. Commentary in this game is great. I saw some review that laid into it. I don't know what they were smoking, man. Like, the commentary in this game is the best Madden commentary I've ever seen. But the thing is, like, after a while, I just turn it off anyway. So it's really not that big a deal. Otherwise, it's just another year of Madden. And I feel like sports games, and Madden in particular, has just become so complicated. It's insane how complicated this game is. Like, the new stuff, like, there's like, so you, instead of just doing a spin move or a juke or a hurdle, now there's like powered up versions of those moves where you can hold the left trigger and then they do super hurdles or super spins, or it's just, and then if the chances of you fumbling are higher, but your chances of breaking the tackle are higher. It's like the risk reward thing. But the problem is that this game increasingly is being made for pros who play the game. They're not making it for most sports fans. If you look at the sales of Madden, and this is the last point I'm going to make. I'm not going to beleaguer Madden because I know you guys are already tapping your fingers on your desk or whatever. But if you look at the sales of Madden, they're around 3 to 4 million every year. Do you know how many NFL fans there are in the United States or worldwide even?
There's like 100 million.
100 plus million. Yeah. So you cross-reference that with, okay, there's 100 million consoles out there right now, roughly, between the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Wii U, around 100 million. So probably half of those are probably NFL fans. So let's just conservatively say 40 million NFL fans own consoles right now, and you're selling 3 or 4 million copies of Madden? That is insane. That is something that EA, it's a smart company. I'm sure it's run the numbers a billion times. It needs to change it. It needs to make a football game that football fans want to play, not just like hardcore gamers who are going to play Madden all day, every day. I feel like the franchise has lost sight of making money, in all honesty. Like, it should be selling way more than 3 or 4 million copies a year. Way more, at least double that. And there was a time where it was. They need to find a way to make a Tecmo Bowl version of Madden.
Like, remember back when, in 1999, when the Dreamcast came out, and NFL 2K was one of the, like, star launch titles?
Yeah,
one of the reasons people were buying the system.
It's gone so far away from that.
It's
not there anymore.
And I, even as someone who didn't really care about football, I had fun playing that game.
Yeah. And it's like, you can still have all the realism. You just don't have to make the player control it all. It's like, you know you have a good running back, Le'Veon Bell, using a Steeler. You know what he can do. You know that he can run over a lot of players. You know he has a great cut. You know he has a great spin move. So just make it happen automatically, depending on the angle he's running, the speed he's running at, and the stats of the guy that's coming after him. Like, I shouldn't have to, like, hold 2 modifier buttons and hit the circle and then the triangle to make him hurdle over somebody. Like,
when it's also notable that, like, if you're sitting around with a bunch of our friends or gamers or press people or whatever, and you start naming, it's like Madden 08, Madden 11, Madden 99, and people are like, then you say Tecmo Ball. Everybody's got a story.
Oh yeah.
Like, make it fun. Make it fun to play.
Make it fun. And look, they can keep this, if they are serious about going into esports with Madden or whatever, they can keep that part of the game. If they want to keep making it, I think it's a losing proposition. They can do it if they want. But honestly, I think the default mode for this game needs to be something far more user-friendly and fun. It's not fun. Like, it's so complicated, just like calling a timeout and managing the clock. Like, most people who pick this game up won't know how to call a timeout, like, without going into the menu and hitting timeout. They won't know what the hot button is to call a timeout. And you can lose a game because of that. Like, it's just become too much. And the problem is you have these Mad Knights, or whatever the hell you want to call them, that are constantly, these are their consultants that they're talking to. They need to stop talking to the people who are professional Madden players and start talking to football fans about what they want in an NFL game.
It's too bad this is not like a standard Big Six, because it would have been nice to have it say Maddening.
Right.
Down on the bottom.
That definitely would have been the graphic. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a good playing football game, but in all honesty, you can get Madden NFL 16 now. You can actually get it for free if you have EA service. You can play it for free right now. You can probably find it in a store, because sports games, that's the one thing that when the new one comes out, the old one is like $10.
I love I went to a couple of like vintage game stores recently, and one of the ones I went to in San Jose had this, like, the bottom of one of the shelves way in the back. It was that's where they put the sports games that are never going to sell.
Yep.
And it's just stacks and stacks of PlayStation 1 Madden games, and like one that was just a stack of Madden 96 for the N64.
Yeah.
It was
That was not good.
I don't even know what it was called. It might have just been called Madden 64.
It was, yeah.
It was just like, no one is ever, like, why would anyone?
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why. It was like a really bad version of the game. So, I know everyone's hype. NFL season is early. Some of you are hype. NFL season's coming. Everyone's doing their fantasy drafts right now. It's very easy to kind of fall into that trap and be like, man, I want the new Madden. But I highly recommend against buying the new game. I definitely recommend just picking up the old one for a cheaper price.
So this is not my my entry point into the modern Maddens.
It is not. So that's my take. Game of How will be coming, but I just figured I'd give you guys a quick synopsis of how I'm feeling the game so far.
Not living up to the bullet points.
It's not. I mean, the bullet points all work. They just don't change the game very drastically.
So you do not suspect that the new director of EA Tiburon is Sean Murray?
No. No, he's not. They haven't lied like everyone is saying Sean Murray did. All right, let's move on.
There's no grass on the field. I don't know what the hell's going on. They said there would be grass on this football field.
Actually, if you remember back before the very first PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 versions of Madden launched, they put out that CG trailer.
Yeah.
They've still never hit that.
The trailer that Penny Arcade coined the word bullshot off of.
Yeah. They've still never hit
gotten
that.
there.
The grass and all that stuff has still never gotten to that level. And here we are, I don't know, 10 years later.
How long before there will be like real-time grass deformation?
I mean, there kind of is. Like for the last several years of Madden, like as you play, the field gets deteriorated. I don't think it's real time though.
Right.
Like I don't think like when a player's cleat hits the grass and he sprints, like that leaves a divot there. I think just they have like different texture maps that, depending on the weather and maybe where the ball was most of the time, it just has this new texture map that shows like a mud puddle or whatever that goes over.
That's what I'm just saying. Like at one point,
how long till that happens?
When do we hit that? When do we hit a procedural puddle making?
Like Neo 6 or something. All right, let's move on. Today, Ubisoft, I believe, in my opinion, finally admitted defeat with The Division. It finally said, look,
there's a name I've not heard in a long time.
Yeah, we have completely botched the Game Plus content, or whatever you want to call it, post-game content for this game.
End-game stuff, yeah.
And they are delaying the next 2 pieces of DLC to try to get the game to a fundamentally sound place. Matt, why do you think it took them so long to do this?
Denial? I don't. It sold so well they didn't care. I don't know.
I have not heard a single person
I played that game. I played that game for 100 hours when it came out, at least.
And that's
and
amazing
I haven't
to me.
touched it since.
Still, you played 100 hours. That's crazy.
I played a lot in March and early April, and then when they started, like once we'd done everything and we'd kind of like done the end game, grinded the end game stuff a certain amount. Like, I think we did I guess the term for it would be a raid, like whatever.
The wall hack one, where you could hack the wall.
And at a certain point, it was just like, what are we doing? Like, why are we still doing
That's
this?
how I felt after I finished the campaign.
Yeah, and so...
I was just like, I tried to play the post. I played a little bit.
It never even occurs to me to go back and play that game.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of changes do you think that they need to make for you to go back?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know what you'd have to do to get me to come. I mean, I don't know, like, have aliens invade? Like, I have no idea what would entice me back. Maybe if I knew that I was going to be able to do something. Like, the thing I don't like about the end game they put in that game, and in Destiny, and in MMOs in general, because they're obviously even though they're not MMOs, they take a lot of the stupid stuff from MMOs for those games.
Right.
And it's that whole, like, oh, you just got to grind the same content over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and then maybe one day you'll get lucky and get the thing you want. It's like, just let me get it.
Yeah.
Just like we know what the deal is here, guys. Like, I know you want me to keep playing your game, and you know that I want the thing that makes me cool in the game.
Yeah.
Let me get the thing. Don't make me gather 6 other players to do it. Don't make me like play it 4 times to maybe get like a 5% drop. Like, just let me see your content. Give me the permutations of it. Give me what I need to get to the next thing. Because that's the thing is like it's like, oh, we had to play like the challenge mode of a couple of the other campaign levels to get some of our people enough gear so that they could hack
Survive,
it in the raid section. And I'm like, we've already played all of these levels like 7, 8, 9 times each. So why can't we just go into the new thing we haven't seen? Again, it's like, I don't know who you think you're catering. I guess it's like catering to the Mad Knights. It's like, I understand that there are people who just play this every night over and over, and like that's they just want to like have a reason to keep playing these things over and over, and so that's why it takes so long to get this stuff, because otherwise they feel like they're not doing anything for a reason. And I'm like,
you don't even get anything for playing Madden over and over online.
But it's like, guess what? You're not getting anything for playing it over and over. You might one day get this thing. It's like, why don't we just like, especially for an action-based game like these things, like just let me see it. Let me do it. And even World of Warcraft has come around to that, where it's just like you can play any dungeon in that game.
Yeah.
With like a pickup group with no voice communication and burn right through it. Stuff that used to take a 40-man coordinated voice chat with their own Ventrilo server. Like, you can just burn right through it now. And like, I just don't understand who's interested in that at this point. There's too much in coming out in games to keep up with if you're interested in games, and if you only play like one thing at a time. I'm sure you have more of a life to deal with than to just continually play the Division over and over again. So what they would need to do is keep the content coming fast and heavy, and do something more like Destiny did, where it felt like if one time through your content, I got to a point where I felt like I could play the endgame stuff okay, and then the endgame stuff would parcel stuff out on a reasonable schedule that I could keep moving forward, so that when the next thing came out in terms of the new DLC content or whatever, I was ready for it. And like, as opposed to like something like early Destiny, where it was like, well, you haven't grinded your light stat long enough, so you can't play this new thing.
Yeah.
And like, I was just sort of figuring that the Division was going to do that, because they spent so long like actively trying to stop players from having a good time. Like, even I know the glitches are something you want to like, but the reason players were using those glitches so much, even people
it wasn't fun to play.
It wasn't fun to get the stuff that they were getting by doing that. So it's like, well, if I can cut out 30 minutes of playing the same level for the 15th time, yeah, I'm going to do that. Like, of course I'm going to do that. And then they were threatening to ban people who did that, and it's like,
yeah, no.
You're like they got really weird and huffy about their own bad design choices.
They did, yeah. So every week Ubisoft puts out a corny live-action trailer, because every week that Division puts out new missions.
Yeah,
to play.
That challenge thing they do. Yeah,
and which is a cool idea.
Yeah,
to keep people coming
keep you
back.
engaged and keep interacting with the community. It's a good idea.
The one this week, the mission was kill 200 Rikers.
Bite me.
It's like, are you freaking kidding me?
I've already killed 2,000 Rikers.
I don't want to
Who
kill
cares?
200 more. It's insane, dude. To me, it's so simple. So simple what they should do. Just create bosses. Just every week, create a new boss to fight. And don't make it so you have to be level whatever to fight this boss. Look at the group of people who are fighting it, scale the boss to fit that group of people. Sure, some people are going to die more than others. That's fine. Go and rescue them, heal them. It doesn't matter. But at least it's exciting. It's something to go back to. And then if you defeat that boss, everybody gets an awesome weapon or a skin or whatever. It's so simple. It would be... I would keep playing The Division if that were the case. If there's a memorable boss, you never knew what it was, and like the day before they put out a trailer, here's the new boss, and you get your crew together, you and I, we get a couple friends, boom, we go and we fight the boss, we get our weapon, take that weapon in to fight the new boss the next week. It just seems so simple. Just create a boss rush. I don't want to have to fight the Rikers anymore. I fought them 1,000,000 times already in the campaign. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of all the factions. I'm sick of all of them in The Division by the time I finish that campaign.
Well, I knew we were on our way out when we were playing, I don't remember which level it was, but we were sitting in one of the elevators you have to take down for whatever, and one of the guys in our group just said, fucking hate this elevator. and it was just like one of those things where, and you knew, like, no explanation was needed. It was just like, he hates this elevator because we've been in this elevator so many times. Yeah. And you're sitting here and it gives you
ran out of fun stuff to do in the elevator.
Yeah, it gives you this it gives you this sort of moment, this downtime, this second to think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I'm doing this again.
It was like the load screens on Destiny, where I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I still doing this? And at that point, you're basically relying on peer pressure to keep people playing because no one wants to let their friends down.
Yep.
But like no one really likes doing it anymore. Yeah. And it's like at that point, you're literally just addicted. Everyone's sitting in the bar drinking, but no one wants to be drinking in the bar. But that's what you do, so it's what you're doing.
I just think that and it's not just The Division. It's Destiny. It's all these games. They're just looking at the post-game stuff in the completely wrong way. Like,
well, the post-game stuff in these games always, for whatever reason, seems to be modeled on like MMOs from like 2004.
It's like instead of like,
and even the MMOs don't do that anymore.
And here's this dude that it's like a bullet sponge you have to chip down for 3 hours to kill. It's like, I don't want to do that. That's not fun to me. And I don't think it's fun to most people either. Like, and it's especially not fun doing it again. It's like, okay, here we go again. I'm going to chip this down for an hour until we finish him off or what. Like, I just think they're taking the exact wrong approach with this stuff. And I think the answer to fixing it is simple. I don't think Ubisoft's going to do that with this game. I think they're looking at all the problems with like glitches and bugs and all this other problems that they're having. I don't think they're actually looking at fundamentally changing. Because if they were going to do that, they'd have to say, look, it's going to be 6 months. Instead, they're like slight delays for both. Like,
well, also, like I think looking at what the DLC is, like their DLC packs, like you don't get it. Because like one of those DLC packs is literally sewers. Yeah. I never need to see another sewer in a game ever. Like, why is it not?
We used to say that back when we worked on X-Play.
Oh, yeah. That goes back to the Old Man Murray Rune review, which is one of the things that it was the things that.
I guarantee most of the people watching this have no idea who Old Man Murray is.
Google it, Old Man Murray Rune review, and read it. That review is one of the things that created X-Play.
It is,
because like it just goes on about what is with all the sewers in games. Why is this game about Norse mythology? Everything is in a sewer, and I think it was Sessler's favorite quote, where it's just like, "Are all game level designers just a bunch of homesick chuds, or what?" It's I mean it's hilarious because it just even back then, this was like 1999, 2000.
It's only gotten worse.
It's just ripping the thing apart, but it's like, what in the world makes you think that one of the things I want to do in The Division, a game set in Manhattan, which only depicts about a third of Manhattan at best.
Right.
What makes you think the thing I want to do is go in the sewers?
Yeah.
Like, you don't even have Central Park in this game yet. Like, why am I not going north? Why is there not shit happening on the Upper East Side? Like, what? Why can't? Why are we?
That would take a lot of work.
Why not? I don't care. Like,
I know.
You're charging for this shit.
Yeah, I'm just explaining why.
Like, wouldn't it be more interesting to have like some kind of DLC where it's like, we got to push to Harlem?
Yeah.
We got to get up there for whatever reason. There's something going on up there, and that's the big thing. We got to get up to Harlem, and you got to push your way through Central Park, which gives you a completely different environment that you have to fight in because everything else has been urban warfare, and now you're in basically a jungle, right?
It makes sense.
And there would be a lot of fun stuff you could do with that, but instead you're making me go into sewers, and I'm not happy about it. Like, you got to entice me back to this game, and climbing down another fucking ladder is not doing it for me.
Yeah. So, Ubisoft, get it together, bro.
What
What
up?
I really don't get it, man. It's not
not
just
weird
them.
stuff. It's like at the same time, more and more as we close in, it's like, why are you putting Watch Dogs 2 out after the 3 biggest games of the fall? Like, what? You're going to go
like
Titanfall
Pachter this week. He's like,
yeah, he said the same. This Titanfall 2, Battlefield 1, Call of Duty: Infinite Warfare, and then Watch Dogs 2. Like, who's waiting for Watch Dogs 2 off of those
biggest cruising
things?
for a bruising.
Yeah, that's going to be. And he also, like he said, I mean, I know it was delayed. That was the reason it ended up in May or whatever. They intended to release it in the holiday season, but it did really well in May. Maybe May is where that game should be. I know you don't have a Assassin's Creed this year, but like
that's not happening though. Like it was pretty much done at Gamescom already. Like people were playing multiplayer and it's ready. I mean, it would be smart to hold it. Even hold it. I don't know. February's looking just as brutal at this
February's
point.
not good either, but I would say that game would do better in the spring. Even if you even got to get it out for the fiscal year, like something like mid-March.
Yeah.
You
I agree. But we're not running Ubisoft.
No.
Let's move on. So we're going to talk about Deus Ex in a bit. We'll do a big section on that. Matt and I have both been playing it. But it came out on the PC as well as consoles, and there's been a bunch of problems with it. PC gamers are complaining about it. Seems to be a recurring trend with PC games forever, really. But, as time has gone on and PC gaming is, people are developing basically for the PC first, and then they're kind of ported to the consoles. It's all this unified development architecture that they're making games on. It seems to me it should be getting better. It doesn't seem to be getting better. No Man's Sky, another recent game, tons of problems on PC. They're saying that the new patch is going to fix 90% of the problems or whatever. But Matt, so I watch pretty much every podcast, but I also watch Kinda Funny's podcast. And one of the things that they're notorious for is just outwardly hating PC gaming. They make no bones about it. They say they hate PC gaming. They make fun of people who are PC gamers, which I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree with completely hating PC gaming. But I'm starting to kind of understand at least where they're coming from. Because it just seems like every major release when it comes out is broken on the PC. So, Matt, is PC gaming really getting better over time?
I don't...
You think back to the Warner Brothers stuff with Batman and Mortal Kombat.
Well, in the case of that stuff, it can only get better.
Yeah.
And Arkham Knight works now, more or less. I mean,
Well, it's like a year
they
later.
had to give everybody they had to give everyone their money back and pull it off of Steam. But in the if you buy it now for whatever, like $15 or something, I think it costs now. Like, it does work.
Yeah.
It's still a terrible game, but it does work. You're stuck playing the tank, but like. There's a couple rules in PC gaming. I would say, if what was the meme going around when Arkham came out was if you see if you see a PC port by Warner Brothers, warn a bro. And then Ubisoft, never buy a Ubisoft PC port day one.
I mean, it's not just those two, though. It's everybody.
Well, I think it's due to two factors. And the first factor is that everybody's got a different hardware setup, and it's impossible to test for every possible permutation. Sean Murray did say that the actual serious incompatibility complaints for No Man's Sky was coming from about 1% of the user base, which I realize he may not be the most reliable source in the game industry. But
I trust those numbers for what that's worth.
Yeah, and that's still. They sold about 750,000 copies on PC, or at least on Steam. Probably that's not counting GOG, which was probably much less, I would think. But even that is like you're dealing with about probably let's up it a little bit, say 10 to 20,000 people whose game just doesn't work. That's not even including I've had like 5 or 6 crashes in 100 hours, which is kind of expected in anything. but like there's people that it wouldn't boot. So that's a pretty significant chunk of people. So I think you're dealing with that. No battle plan survives contact with the enemy. PC games are probably more fragile than most in that regard because you never know what with this video card, with this RAM, with this motherboard causes everything to go kerblooey, and we didn't know that until it hit the public because we didn't have that configuration in our QA lab. So that habit's always been a factor. The other thing that I think is probably more important is that the developers that make the games are often not the ones making the PC versions anymore.
Yeah, they do. A lot of times farm out that port.
They farm that port out to people very often now. And sometimes it's, like the Deus Ex, Deus Ex's PC version was a port by a company whose name I can't remember. But they also did the director's cut of Human Revolution and apparently got that up and running to a very, that's a solid PC version now. But the thing is, you often, and that was the problem with the Warner Brothers stuff. Often is a different developer does the port, and sometimes they either aren't very good at what they're doing, or they are not given the proper support and time to make a proper port of or the game's being worked on for consoles, and they they finally get the assets and everything they need to make this port, but they get sometimes you hear stories about that port was terrible. We had 2 weeks.
It should be getting easier, though.
You'd think
a lot easier.
Again, I think that combined with the hardware variability makes it a big problem. And to be fair, the big problem with Deus Ex was that the very early on after the tutorial section, there's a cutscene where there's an explosion in a train station, and immediately after that cutscene, the game would crash and you couldn't play the game. And part of the problem with this was. It was some people had if I turn this setting off, it works or whatever. But the problem was the cutscene's almost 10 minutes long, and the last time you can save is before the big showdown at the end of the tutorial level. So every time you tried it again, you were basically had to sit through almost 20 minutes of content you'd already seen.
Right.
And then if it didn't work, you had to do it again.
Oh,
so
screw that.
So they did patch it I think the next morning or later that night. And that fixed it for me anyway. And I was annoyed that it delayed me a little bit.
Yeah.
But
so I guess what I'm getting at is
but what I'm saying is the reason that happens, I think, and I've heard this from a lot of friends I have who are developers, and they talk about this. It's always one of those. It's I'm not going to say specifically, but I'll tell you why that happened. And it's because the PC versions of things sell so much less. It's if you sell the 750K number for No Man's Sky, that's great. If you sell 700K or higher of your AAA game on PC, that is phenomenal.
Oh, you're in the upper fifth percentile.
Because it's a smaller user base, and also a lot of the user base just pirates it.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, that same game is selling 2 million PlayStation 4 copies.
Yeah.
And so, by nature, the companies are going to focus on the versions that make them more money. And so PC is going to end up sort of being the redheaded stepchild in that situation. And I think for a lot of people, myself included, it's annoying, but the trade-off once everything's done is you get a much better version of that game.
You do.
And
typically you do eventually.
And it's true. It's also the fact that it's one thing goes wrong on my rig, and instead of, playing an hour of a game I want to play, I'm spending an hour trying to find out what the hell went wrrong. Because if one thing goes down, you got to deal with this problem, you got to reflash the BIOS, you got to take that, unseat it, open the whole thing up. And or I suppose what? If I had this on PlayStation 4, I would have put it in the console, and I'd be playing right now.
Or if it didn't work, you put it out until they put out the patch,
right?
And then you put it back in.
But it's just one of those trade-offs. The higher end experience comes with that price, and.
But here's what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that with these incremental upgrades for consoles now, which I even have a problem calling them consoles, they're really just little shuttle PCs. I don't know. It's hard to rationalize going through all that anymore for PC gaming. Because these are becoming PCs now.
Yeah.
You could have bought a launch game for PlayStation 4. You're going to be able to play it in the Neo 7-8 years from now at a higher resolution, higher frame rate,
maybe,
probably, likely.
If they update those older games.
Yeah, but
anything past October this year.
Right. You're golden, and so it's, I don't know. I enjoy PC gaming. It's really what probably made me a hardcore gamer was PC gaming ultimately. And I totally get it's the superior experience. Even with the video card I have, like, multi-platform games look best on my PC compared to my console. But it's just really hard to rationalize going through all that rigmarole anymore to get that little bump in fidelity, especially when these consoles are going to keep getting more and more powerful. And I feel like the gap between the PC, as long as you're buying a mid-range card and you're not spending $1,000 for a graphics card, the cards that most people are going to buy for PC, the gap between that and what you're getting on the consoles, I feel is just going to keep shrinking.
I think there will just be some things that will never catch up in that. I mean, you're always going to have a certain segment of the population that wants more control over their experience. The mod scene on PC is always going to give you more that control.
Yeah.
I mean, even just in the last 2 weeks of No Man's Sky, for the PC, you can have a mod that removes the circle thing, and the thing where you have to hold the button
fly
and
your ship wherever you want.
They took that mod down.
Oh,
it's gone now. No one knows why.
They must have broke the game.
Well, it did in places, but it was still pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
Or Skyrim, you put enough mods on that thing, and like you're playing a different game. And also, being able to tweak this, tweak that. There's a lot of there are people. I know there's people who think that just the mere fact that they can pull chromatic aberration or whatever effects or bloom or whatever they don't like off of their game it makes it worth it to them. There are people who you will never convince them that a controller is a viable game controlling device. They want mouse and keyboard no matter what. I've seen people that insist that mouse and keyboard is the way to play Arkham Asylum. Like the rabbit hole goes deep. That crowd
is slowly dying, though.
It's getting there. I mean, I think everybody has a controller for the most part now on a PC. But I totally get why someone wants to play Deus Ex with a mouse and keyboard rather than a controller. I'm playing with a concontroller on PC. I don't care.
Yeah.
If it's not multiplayer, I don't use the mouse.
I play almost all my PC games with a controller.
Me too. But I understand that I don't play strategy.
With mouse and keyboard.
Yeah. And I will play mouse and keyboard. Like Overwatch.
Even shooters now I play with.
I'll play Overwatch mouse and keyboard because it's just
terrible
better.
With mouse and
multiplayer, I feel I definitely feel a difference because people are just aiming at me better than I can aim at them.
For sure.
But like, there's people that don't care, want to play. That's the thing is like the level playing field only works so far. Rocket League, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But like, if you want to do like cross-platform play on Call of Duty, the PC players are going to destroy you.
Yeah.
So the only advantage you have is that there's fewer of them.
Yeah.
But like, so I understand like someone who wants the control over that. I like it because I really appreciate the visual fidelity. And just the versatility that's there.
Some people just enjoy tinkering as well, and messing around with that stuff.
But it's like but sometimes that can be playing Deus Ex. Deus Ex is the first game to really push my Titan X setup, and because there's some things that it can't do. Part of that is because it's not optimized and it doesn't support DirectX 12 yet. But I had to basically start the game about 4 different times in different settings to kind of get a steady 60 frames at 1440p.
See, that can be annoying too, though.
It was annoying because I'm like, at this point I'm just like, okay, I've seen this. They drop you into the beginning where you're on the top of the big thing in the construction site in Dubai, and I got the whole like the waters there and everything, and the worst seagulls ever put in a game.
Man,
did you see those things?
So bad.
And I'm like, really? That's there's tons of them everywhere, and you just look at it.
They're like 5 frames of animation.
Like the body's not moving up or down at all. It's just like seagull. And I'm like, really? Like that was. Like that's the big.
I noticed that immediately too.
It's like the big because
they all
amazing
fly
thing.
off of
they all fly away. And if you look at them for more than 1 second, it's like, wow, that's like Dreamcast graphics right there. Like, it's really bad.
Yeah.
But I digress. But I'm saying, like, by the time I had all the settings worked out and running properly, and I figured out what the one setting that gave me like 40 frames a second back was, contact shadows, by the way.
Yeah.
Turn that from ultra to on. You will save a ton of performance. Finally, I'm like, okay, now I can finally play the game, and I was like, I'm already sick of this part because I've already done it so many times.
I mean, that's typical of PC gaming, though. That's just something.
But if I'd been playing like a PlayStation 4, I would have just been dumped in the. That's the thing about the consoles is yes, you're stuck with this lower level of fidelity, but you also don't have that drive to well, maybe I could get just that much more performance. It's like being a tinker on a car. It's like, well, on the PC, maybe I could get this much more out of it. Whereas on the PlayStation 4, I'm just like, no, that's what it is. I'm playing the game. I don't care.
Here's a good analogy. I got my car, and my car, a lot of people mod it and do all kinds of crazy stuff to it. And you start looking at it, it's like, well, you can get this catback exhaust, and it'll cost you $700, and you have to take it to some tuner shop to get it done. And then you look at the end, what you get, 7 horsepower. It's just like, it's not worth it.
If you do enough, you get a big boost.
Right.
But the thing is, like, when you have the potential, that's always gnawing at the back of my mind when I do that. Whereas,
certain people are that way.
And it's funny because like I can play something like that on like the PlayStation 4, and it'll it's 30 frames a second. It runs at 900p. It drops. There's some tearing. It drops to like 25 frames when it gets really busy. And the whole time it's like, I don't notice. I don't get it. But on PC, if I'm playing at like 4K 60 frames a second, and something drops to like 55 frames a second for like more than like a second, it's like, what was that? Why isn't that working? And I'm like, oh, gotta go into the INI, gotta go figure out what's going on, and it's just like everything has to work perfectly, or it's not done right.
I know.
And like that.
So let's go back to the question.
That can be a problem.
Is PC gaming getting better?
I wouldn't say it's getting worse.
Really?
I mean, I haven't noticed a huge difference, really, in the last... I mean, look, I also have some pretty good luck. I did have the little problem with Deus Ex and the performance. In like 110 hours of No Man's Sky, I have crashed maybe 4 times.
Wow, that's good.
Far less than the PlayStation 4 version,
yeah.
and I played less of the PlayStation 4 version. For the most part, I dodge a lot of the tech bullets. I don't buy Ubisoft games day one. I do have most of the Assassin's Creed games on Steam because years and years later, because I like those games. But I will never buy a Ubisoft PC version the first day.
Yeah.
So if you know where the minefields are, it's still a pretty rewarding thing. But I totally understand.
To me, over all this time, it should be getting better.
It should be, but
it should be getting better.
I've had gaming PCs since the mid '90s.
So have I, and it seems like people were still dealing with the same crap after all this time. It seems insane.
Everyone builds their own, and it's always going to be a different hardware configuration, and that's just how it's going to be. I mean, and that's the good thing about these new consoles that are not consoles is that they're going to try to normalize that sort of thing, and so you'll get better performance with less of the headaches. But there's always going to be that temptation for me, at least, to be like, well, I could just get a Neo, or I could make it a little more powerful and get this thing, and then that would run like this, and it'd be amazing. So I think it is permanently going to be relegated to being sort of a niche hobby, the super high-end gaming rig thing. But maybe, as you say, as the architecture becomes more and more similar, the ports will become less and less problematic.
They just start scaling these console games now, too, just the way you scale a PC game. I mean, now you're talking about multiple configurations.
Right. Well, now you start to wonder, it's like, well, is that going to make everything simpler and easier to port in the PC direction? Or are the consoles just going to inherit the problems of PC gaming?
Exactly. To me, it's a red flag. That's exactly why I wanted to bring up this topic, because that could be the console future, what we have with PC. So we'll see, but definitely worth discussing.
Will the PlayStation Neo need an access hatch?
Right.
Where you can dig in and reseat your RAM. I don't know.
Oh, good God, not. All right, let's move on. MPT report came out this week. It was not pretty at all. In fact, it was really frickin' bad. NPD down 14% year over year. The top 10 games for last month, there was one new entry in the entire top 10. That was Monster Hunter Generations for the 3DS. The top-selling game was Grand Theft Auto 5, a game that's now, 4 years old? Mm-hmm. Is this news or nonsense, Matt?
I think it's a slow summer. There's just nothing coming out.
Hardware's down, hardcore.
There's nothing to buy.
Yeah, I mean, everyone kind of knows there's these new consoles coming as well. That can't help.
I mean, what happened to the Xbox, the S, selling out? That was not enough numbers to make it.
So here's the thing. You know how Microsoft put out a press release like a week and a half ago saying it beat the PlayStation 4 for the first time since last October? Well, as it turns out, the top-selling platform was 3DS.
Oh, wow.
The top-selling platform was the 3DS.
Didn't I tell you they were all sold out?
Yeah.
For a while?
No, they were. I mean, I tracked one down for you, yeah. It's crazy. I'll always remember the person on Sifted who said that, Pokemon Go would have no pin action on any of it. They were so wrong. You were so wrong. You should just come into the comments and be like, "You were right, Shane." For once, Shane, you were right. But do you think this is a cause for? I mean, 14%, Matt.
Yeah, I think it's not too big a deal. Just
really?
Because I think this summer was a terrible release season. This is the worst summer drought I've seen in a long time, and also, movies are in the same position. Movies are down too. I think this summer was not a good mass media entertainment period. It was. I think both because the quality of the releases was a little lower than people expected, and I really feel like a lot of people left town this summer. I feel like vacations happened this summer. I feel like it was a more active summer, and who knows at this point? Maybe it was because everybody was outside playing Pokemon Go.
I mean, Pokemon Go is the big story of the year so far in video games.
But
that game's free.
So I will worry about that more if it's down 14% in October.
This is 3 months in a row it's been down year over year. There are more consoles out there now for people to buy games for.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any games for them to buy. And also remember that they're still just not doing digital in this, right?
They are, yeah.
Which digital?
I don't remember the exact numbers, but they're digital numbers as supplied by the publisher. Mm-hmm. So they're not actually tracking it. They're just getting the numbers
from publishers,
yeah.
But not Sony and Microsoft.
Yeah, Sony and Microsoft will not give them the numbers. Yeah.
So I really feel like the rise of digital plus really an empty release schedule since June, and the ones that did come out, other than No Man's Sky, have been pretty much sales disappointments. I mean, Mirror's Edge certainly didn't do anything, and I'm struggling to think of a major retail release beyond those two.
GameStop did their financials today, as I mentioned earlier. They were down 7% from last month. And they said that their actual games and hardware sales were down way more than that their butts were saved by their pivot, which is to start selling games merchandise and game T-shirts and all that crap.
Action figures, yeah.
That is what's saving their butts right now, is that pivot that they did just 7 or 8 months ago.
Well, I mean, again, I think there's not a lot to buy if you're, either a core or a casual right now, and the core people who are probably the most likely to find stuff to buy are all waiting for the hardware updates.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us are dumb enough to go buy a PlayStation 4 right now. We got to see what they're about to offer.
Yeah. I actually disagree with you. I think there is a cause for alarm here. I've never seen at this point in the console cycle, which is kind of thrown out the window anyway at this point with the upgradable hardware and all that. But I've never seen at this point in a console cycle the sales falling that hard. And announcing a slimmer version of a console, that's nothing new. That's happened. I mean, look, the One S, it sold out, and the industry is still down that much.
Well, you could also, this might be a bit of a reach, but we are in the middle of a very turbulent election season.
Yeah.
And I already know of 2 separate instances in which I have friends who are having to move because their landlords are selling all their property. I'm not kidding. They're selling all their property before November at fire sale prices because they're afraid Hillary's going to get elected and ruin the economy. They're basically apocalypse selling.
Why can't they do that in Los Angeles? I'll come and buy that property,
I don't know.
lickety-split.
Well, because you're always going to have to live in a major urban area. Right. But this is happening in Oklahoma and stuff, right? So if there's a lot of people that are freaked out about whoever getting elected ruining everything, maybe
that's
people are
a good
maybe
point.
people
Although
are just buckling down on luxury purchases.
Although I think most people were in fear of the other candidate doing that to the economy.
Right, but I think whichever side you're on, you are afraid of the other candidate doing that. So it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people are locking down their luxury purchases right now until they see what the hell happens in November. I don't think that's going to impact Call of Duty sales, mind you.
Yeah.
But
it's got guns.
I'm not saying I have any empirical evidence for that, but that mentality might be going around. It could be part of why people are not spending money on entertainment right now.
Although, if you look historically, during hard times, entertainment was one of the things that was not punished by a poor economy.
Yeah, but when the poor economy arrives,
right?
Not during the fear of it.
Oh, you're right. That's a good point.
So, because everybody's afraid of it, and then when it happens, everybody sort of hits that Equilibrium, and they're like, well, holy shit, I need to shoot some people. So they go and they buy Call of Duty.
Yeah.
That'll be what happens.
I'm definitely a little more concerned over it than Matt is, just simply because I've just never seen this happen before.
It's pretty bad, but I think it's a combination of a lot of extraneous factors, and I'm not going to be worried about it until it starts to be a trend during the holiday season, basically. If we get to October and shit's still falling, then I'm going to be like, what's going on?
Okay. Today, there was a new Duke Nukem Twitter handle launched that was promptly followed by Gearbox, and then a fake debate started happening between Randy Pitchford and the new Duke Nukem account. There is a new website launch. There seems to be a countdown counting down to something. Some people are saying it's a new Duke Nukem game. Some have speculated it's a remaster of Duke Nukem 3D. Either way, do you care?
No.
You don't?
No. I've never cared about Duke Nukem.
Really?
No. I played the original back in the day, and it was fine.
Yeah. I do have an affinity for Duke Nukem, because he is kind of one of the original video game icons that wasn't for kids. Because like the first however many years of the industry, all the mascots, all the icons were built around children. Duke was one of the first video game icons for adults.
I mean, it's fine.
And I mean,
my main good memory
built around fart jokes and whatever else, but
my main good memory of Duke Nukem is the Ventrilo harassment video, where someone used a Duke Nukem soundboard to basically break a woman's mind.
it is pretty good. Yeah.
That is the greatest moment of Duke Nukem. I've got balls of steel.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are going to look at this with a negative connotation because of Duke Nukem Forever, which, oddly enough,
was terrible.
Was terrible and took forever to develop.
But I know it's not cool to like give Gearbox the benefit of the doubt these days in a post-Aliens Colonial Marines era. But I don't think a lot of Duke Nukem Forever was their. I think they inherited most of that game, and it's you got it.
They just needed to barf it out.
You got to get it out. You got to do it. And I will keep one eye on whatever this is and see what they're going to put out. But because I do think Duke Nukem has a good game in him in the modern era. You can do that.
Duke Nukem 3D was pretty good. I would argue that's probably the best Duke Nukem game ever.
The original one?
Yeah.
Like the
Duke Nukem 3D, the original, yeah.
It's all right. I don't think I ever finished. That game was really long.
It was long, yeah.
Back then, those first-person shooters back in the day used to take forever.
Duke Nukem Forever was going to be really long, too. They chopped like half the game out to get it out. So
the worst offender, I think, being the original Unreal.
Yeah.
Which was like almost like a 30, 40-hour first-person shooter. That was a lot.
Anymore. Definitely doesn't happen anymore. I'm kind of excited. Like, I think whenever the trailer comes out, I'll be right there to watch it. And
I'm sure it will be. It won't be boring to watch the run-up to this one.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I hope it's a new one. I hope it's not a remake of Duke Nukem 3D.
If it was a remake of Duke Nukem 3D, I feel like it would have happened a while ago.
I've put my stake in the ground on remasters on this show many times. Everyone knows how I feel about them. I'm not a big fan.
I feel like the right amount of time has passed for this to be a new game.
I also feel like in this case, there also has been enough time passed for Duke Nukem 3D that the remaster would be something worthwhile doing.
True, but at the same time, I think Gearbox must feel like they have to kind of prove themselves with their new IP, because they own the IP now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it's about time for Gearbox to show what they can do with their own spin on it.
Right.
So I would probably bet it's a new game.
They probably should have done this game instead of Battleborn. Zing!
I got Battleborn for almost nothing on a Humble Bundle a couple weeks ago.
Like $15.
$15 for, I mean, it was 15, but you got a ton of stuff for everything.
Yeah.
So it was like $15 for like 7 or 8 games plus Battleborn.
Right. Which means you got it for like $5.
Right. And I actually wanted the other thing on the $15 tier more than Battleborn, so it was basically like, I got Battleborn by default.
Battleborn, they should just do what they just did with Evolve. Just make it free to play.
Probably, yeah.
Roll microtransactions in there. It's worked.
Evolve.
Yeah. Now they just launched a brand new co-op mode for Evolve, and it's turned its fortunes all the way around. So,
although you see the
so you're lukewarm on Duke.
Yeah, Luke and the Duke.
And I'm excited. I think it's different. Also, that's the other thing. Like Duke Nukem is still different from anything else in the industry.
Yeah. I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there's still no other game like it. Maybe for good reason, but there's still no other game like it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a He's a figment of video games past.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really where he's coming from. That's why I still have a little bit of a love for the guy.
I still feel like he's some sort of ancestor of Gears of War in a lot of ways. Like, Marcus Phoenix is not entirely removed from Duke Nukem in some ways.
No, I'd agree. You're absolutely right, yeah. He's like the spiritual successor to Duke Nukem.
And the other disturbing thing about Duke Nukem is sometimes how, when you see, like, younger gamers talk about it, that, like, they don't know all his lines come from, like, Evil Dead and They Live.
They think
he made up that chew bubblegum and kick ass quote, and I was like, no. That was Rowdy Piper at his rowdiest and roddiest.
His roddiest. Whatever that means.
You better recognize. That's all I'm saying.
All right, let's move on. This past weekend, Titanfall 2 tech test multiplayer alpha. I regret I was not able to play it. It kind of sucked. They announced this at Gamescom. Like, it's coming Friday, and everybody else is all excited. I'm like, I'm leaving town. The good news is when all you guys are going to be watching this, which is Friday, the next one will have started. So both you and I will get a chance to play it this week, and I'm definitely going to give it a go. I just want to talk briefly about the
I'll give
backlash.
it a try now, because I kind of didn't make a lot of time for it, because I'm like, it's Titanfall. I know Titanfall. I'm sure it'll be... And apparently
it's
I was wrong. Very wrong, because on Monday I was poking around on Reddit, and I was like, what? Like, there were some people talking about the changes.
People freaked out.
Part of me can't really blame them for that, because some of these changes are inexplicable.
They really are. Yeah, I was really blown away to find out about some of this stuff. First of all, what was really shocking to me is all their multiplayer trailers and all the footage they had shown of multiplayer so far, the way they were cut together had led me to believe that it was faster than the first game. It's not.
It's not.
Everything about it is slower. Everything about it. Like
it feels slower than modern Call of Duties.
Yeah.
Watching the footage.
Yeah. I mean, the speed that you move at, the speed that the grapple hook works at, the amount of time it takes to be able to use the mechs.
Right.
Like,
well, there's people that don't get mechs sometimes in matches.
Yeah.
Well,
that's crazy.
And it's like I saw someone actually did like a breakdown of the speed in the game versus the first game on Reddit. I don't remember the name though. But he basically said, so like basically you move on the ground, you move at like 20 kilometers per hour, on the wall up to 20 kilometers per hour in the first game. This is all first game. So on the wall running, you can move up to 40 kilometers per hour, and in the air you can move up to 40 kilometers an hour.
Okay.
In the Titanfall 2 tech test thing they did, on the ground you move it at 20, on the walls you move at 30. And in the air, you move at 40. And so you are moving slower on the walls, but the key, I guess, this guy said was, first, the FOV is smaller, so you feel more constrained.
Right.
But the fact that there's no acceleration, that you are moving at that speed, no matter what. Because in the first game, you could gain momentum.
Right, yeah.
And in this, as soon as you hit a wall, you are moving at speed. And so the fact that you don't get to speed up, and you can't use your motion to sort of give yourself a boost like that. It's all like just static, and you're instantly switching between these static speeds. It feels choppier, and it feels clunkier, and it feels like you're moving slower. And I buy that.
As often is crazy.
I just smacked the microphone, but I buy that as a good explanation of why it feels different. Even watching the footage,
for sure.
Feels different.
Yeah. There's plenty of footage out there.
Yeah, and then of course, Titans are no longer on a timer. They're a score streak,
right?
Which does not reset between deaths, but you still have to do the scores to get a Titan, and the Titan meter decays.
It does
over time. So there are people who were playing the game that were not getting Titans.
Yep.
And there are people reporting like matches where like only one person got a Titan through the whole match. It's basically a pilot match.
That's not what you play Titanfall for.
No, not at all.
So they've already done the 360.
Right.
They're like, we hear you. We're gonna basically change everything back to the way it was before.
Hopefully 180.
But is this? Yeah, exactly. Is this where a beta in early access has gone completely wrong?
Not if they fix it, but my question...
Do you think there might be some people who played it the first weekend and were like, screw this, I'm never coming back?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I would hope that if they care that much, they would be paying attention to what's happening as a response to it.
It's a positive and a negative,
especially
right?
if they put out another test and they made those changes and people can play it again this coming weekend and decide, like, oh, they... My question on it is, like, what were you thinking on some of these things? Like, did you just go in and intentionally decide, like, hey, what if we took this unique game we made and ripped all the good shit out of it and just made it more like the other things?
Well, they also said that the campaign is more of a puzzle game than a shooter. That was another quote that came out of Respawn this week.
I don't even know what to think about that.
So the alpha, or whatever they're calling it, the tech test, is a positive and a negative. It's a negative in that you put it out there and so many people hate it, and word of mouth spreads on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. The positive is that you now know that people hate it, so you can change it. But on the flip side of that, you could have just made the game you wanted. It probably still would have sold pretty well. But now you've run the risk of, you've put it out there and actually let people play it. You may have lost.
People are going to walk away whether you change it or not.
Right. Or may not even know that you ever changed it. They're like, oh, I tried that and I didn't like it. Like you were saying earlier, like, not everybody is like us and is like pinned to video game websites all day, every day, seeing what's happening. Like, some people are like, oh, maybe they saw it on the dashboard of their PlayStation 4 or their Xbox One, and like, oh my God, there's a Titanfall 2 alpha.
Well, I think
and they play it, and they're like, this is garbage. And then they don't see it the next weekend when the splash screen's up there.
Or they think it's the same thing next weekend.
Yeah. I mean, is it going to say, Week 2, we
two,
change freaking
please try
everything.
again? Yeah. Good version.
We promised we changed it. Like, you didn't like it last week, but give it another go. Like, are they gonna? They're not gonna message it like that.
I don't know. I mean,
that could be disastrous.
It could be. I mean, I think the real solution is don't mess your game up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that is. I mean, I know they said, like, they wanted people to earn the Titans more, but I'm like, do you think that's why people are here, to, like, earn a Titan, or do people just want to
play with a Titan?
Play with a Titan? And they already had that system in there where, like, as you scored, the better you did, you cut time off your Titan timer, and you got your Titan sooner.
It was kind of perfect.
It was great. And it's just like, what?
Why mess with perfection?
Yeah, like, there's things you could change about the game that would add things or make it better or whatever, but that wasn't part of it. Did anyone complain? I like this Titanfall game, but you know what my problem is? I get a giant robot way too quick. Like, if you could slow it down, if you could make that giant robot maybe not even show up once in a while, that'd be great. It's like, who the hell was doing that? Like, it makes me wonder what the hell is going on at that company.
It is weird, yeah.
That would be a decision that was made.
The game is called Titanfall.
Yeah. Not Titan maybe.
Yeah.
Not Titan where.
Yeah, I don't get it, man. But
not Titan meter fill. Like, what is going on?
But you got to promise me you're going to play the tech test this weekend.
I'll play the tech test.
I'm going to play it
because now it's a thing.
Yeah, it is.
I thought it was I thought it was a guarantee. I was like, oh, I mean, why do I even? It's like Zelda. It's like, why do I even care? Like, it's going to be coming out. It's going to be good. I'm going to play it. We're all going to have a good time. We're going to get grappling hooks. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. And it's like, whoa!
Now all of a sudden, so both of us need to play it this weekend. We'll come back with our impressions for next week's show.
It is at least encouraging that they so quickly were like, okay, we're going to change the Titans to, like, tick up automatically instead of decay. It decayed. It decayed.
I know.
Like, if you didn't do enough stuff fast enough, like, that's the complete. It's like you said. It's like, are you catering to, like, the Mad Knights, to the pros, the people that play this as like a as constant series, as opposed to somebody
very small segment.
Like,
of your
that is not
audience.
going to fly with your stoned audience.
No.
The people that just want to, like, get stoned and play a giant robot game. Like, that's not going to work.
And believe it or not, that's a big segment of gamers.
And the whole and the whole thing where, like, instead of rodeoing the Titans, you just take the battery out, and, like, the Titans can basically, it's like, people have already figured out. It's like, well, it's pretty easy. You just kill the guy who took your battery and get the battery back.
Right.
It's like, so what? Yeah. As opposed to the rodeoing, if you did it successfully, takes that Titan out of the match.
Yep.
Which is like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
There were
how
parts
that
of the game that they had nailed the first time around, and for whatever reason, they had problems signifying which of those parts they had nailed, and they changed the wrong things.
Well, they had. I don't know if you saw the comic that somebody did on Reddit, but it's that comic where it was like it's the boardroom. It's been done many times before, but it's like, usually it's changed the words, but it's like it's a boardroom, and they're like, what can we do for this new thing? And it's like, two yes men, like, kind of doing like let's do that, and there's like some guy, like, leaning there, it's like, and he always says something like, what if we just took this good thing we have? He says the reasonable thing. And then the boss gets really angry, and the last panel is him getting thrown out the window of the office building.
Yeah.
And so in this one, it's like, what if we make it so nobody gets a Titan unless they perform like a god or something? And at the end, it's like the board guy is like, what if we took a game that everybody liked in the first place and is now getting a wider audience and make it more fun to play and reiterate on the things we did right the first time? And then a Titan hand, they Photoshop the whole thing so a Titan hand comes in, grabs the guy, pulls him out, and crushes him. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe that is what happened. Who knows?
Could be.
But,
something's afoot over at Respawn. They didn't bring in that new CEO or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Vince had to kind of step away and be like, maybe I just need to concentrate on creative and have somebody come in and run the company. And who knows if maybe that had a bearing on it?
Yeah, I have no real theory. I don't know enough about the inner workings of that company to know who's making those choices. But it
doesn't seem like a Vince Zampella decision to me.
No, well, or any of those guys.
Yeah.
Those guys know how to make a game.
I know.
Like how do you? If anyone in the world should know why that first game worked, it's that. They're talking about how they're treating it basically as a new IP.
Yeah.
Like like the first game didn't really happen. They're like starting from scratch.
Mistake.
I'm like, then why is it called Titanfall 2?
Exactly. Call it something else.
Call it Titanfall.
I don't know. Things starting to get a little Titanfall.
Titanfall, whatever.
And high hopes and high hype, but things are starting to fade a little bit. I'll play it tomorrow, though.
Help us, Call of Duty. You're our last hope.
It really
apparently.
starting to look, well,
Who the hell
Battlefield,
thought that
maybe.
would, man?
We'll see.
I'm wondering if, like, are we going to come through, like, a bunch of terrible campaigns this fall? Are the campaigns just going to kick us right in the balls?
I don't know.
I'm starting to get worried.
It's getting a little dicey, that's for sure. I mean, like we said on last week's show.
Especially Battlefield 1.
Yeah, Battlefield
Dicey.
1's campaign. Yeah, good one.
That's what we don't want. We don't want a dicey Titanfall 2 campaign.
Yeah.
And by dicey, I mean like one made by DICE.
Like one made by DICE, yeah. All right, let's talk about Dark Souls 3 DLC.
You want to talk about Mario?
No, we're going to skip
right.
that one. I think we're already kind of getting up against it for time. So, Dark Souls 3, the very first DLC trailer was released today, coming out right around Halloween, which is pretty darn perfect.
Good timing. Yeah.
Did you get to watch the trailer for it?
I didn't. I heard it was coming out, and it's again one of those things where it's like, yep, buying that.
Yeah, there's a new boss. There's some new.
Although to be fair,
weapons.
like I never even got it. I don't think I'm even high enough level to do the DLC for Bloodborne.
Oh, really?
So I have trouble being good enough to kind of handle the DLC on the Souls games. It's
so the DLC,
they're no joke.
Obviously, I don't know because I don't play these games. Is the DLC typically more challenging than the base game? Really?
Oh yeah. Like the old Hunters one on Bloodborne, like you have to be like level 80. Really? They recommend like I think it's 80 to even like start. And, like,
I had no idea.
And you go in and it's just like like
really.
They're tough. Like
That's a strange tactic.
It's totally Souls
I
style.
mean,
That's
right.
exactly what people want, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, Dark Souls 2 had a slightly different one in that, like, yeah, it was like that, but it also, like, fixed a bunch of stuff.
I'm just saying for financial reasons. I guess they just don't care about how much money they... I think that's the conclusion I've come to at this point. They do not care how many copies they sell of this series.
But they sell to a very specific audience. They sell about 2 to 3 million copies, and that's their audience. Like,
but they could sell a lot more.
We could always sell a lot more, but you know, they pick
just
your audience.
Choose not to by making certain design decisions, basically.
I don't know. I don't know if what would it be to sell 10 million copies?
Well, I mean, they could have sold you Bloodborne DLC if you didn't have to be that level to play it.
Well, they sold it to me. I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. That's the other thing is I think a lot of people do buy the DLC on this even if they're not ready for it because they want to support the game.
Right.
The community for Dark Souls is very united in terms of trying to support these things and show their love for it. And so I'm sure, even if you're not ready, I mean, most people who are playing these things enough to want the DLC are going to be ready for it. I mean, on Dark Souls 3, I think I'm set. I'm much further along. But Bloodborne, as much as I liked it, I just wasn't there yet. And I am there yet now, but it was like I just haven't started that DLC yet. I did buy it.
Seems like a little bit late for DLC.
I thought it would be sooner, yeah. It would have been good to have that in kind of the summer doldrums, but Halloween's a good time for that, too.
But
so.
that probably could have been the second one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing. They did have, I'm interested to see if they address some of the weird problems the game still has. I mean, I don't think anybody quite figured out what they were doing with Poise yet, because Poise was a very different thing in the other games.
Well, I believe they've admitted that they made a mistake with Poise.
Finally. For a long time they were saying, it's like,
that's the way
you
it's supposed
just
to be.
don't get how it works.
Right.
And I was like, it doesn't work. Like, that's the problem. And they're like, oh, it adds invincibility frames to the roll. That's what poise. Like, that's totally not what poise is supposed to. That doesn't even make any sense. Like, I'm hoping they kind of maybe backtrack on that and fix it up, because it really ruined. I don't play like the big bulky heavy armor builds, but like poise is how those work,
right?
In the other games. And so all of a sudden people are like, oh, I can't do the build I like to do, which is a problem.
Yeah.
So hopefully they kind of get all those ducks in a row.
Maybe they waited so long for the DLC on this because they're like, our game's tough, and like we have to wait for people to like get through the game to get to the point where they could actually buy it.
That's true. There is no real hurry for DLC on these games.
Oh, it's evergreen.
Yeah.
They could release it 3 years from now and people would buy it.
Oh, yeah.
Which could happen, because they're saying they're not doing another Souls game, although I don't believe that at all.
Oh, it's not going to be called that. There's going to be that game, that formula with a different
name
setting
on it.
I think
that's cheating, by the way.
Bloodborne is technically not a Souls game.
Yeah, but I mean, when they talk to From, like they...
Oh, yeah, but whatever.
They coalesce and say, yeah, it's a Souls
It'll be like a future-y... What's that cyborgy one?
Cyberpunk?
No.
2077?
It was a...
The Surge.
The Surge, that's right. So that's something like... I bet I get some kind of like future-y thing.
Some kind of sci-fi deal.
Like Dead Space, but with the Dead Souls kind of...
Dead Space, interesting.
Like a sort of some kind of, nightmarish Event Horizon kind of thing.
That'd be kind of cool.
I think that'd be an interesting direction to go with it.
I think a big part of the game's appeal, though, is its aesthetic. Like,
somewhat, but I think Bloodborne's aesthetic was very different from Dark Souls.
It's still in the same realm.
Somewhat, but I think you can do that in a sci-fi setting as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, you make the ship big and gothic enough, it's still a dungeon.
They could do a zombie game that way, too.
Yeah, that's a little pedestrian.
I mean, they kind of have zombies already.
There's already zombies all through that thing. I think a really crazy, Lovecraftian space kind of Event Horizon, Space Marine sort of thing, like Space Hulk kind of thing would be interesting.
I could see that. All right, next we're going to talk about Deus Ex: Mankind Divided.
More divided than the last topic.
Yeah. Have you been enjoying it, Matt?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, that is, I've come to grips with the fact that this is not my favorite subgenre. The kind of first person shooter RPG sort of Deus Ex, was it Deus Ex, System Shock? I like BioShock a lot, but it's like, I find it like frustrating in places where I'm like, especially because like very early on, once you first get to Prague, you're supposed to go do this thing, and the thing you're supposed to do, you are blocked by a thug guy, and you're like, it's like, okay, I'm like, well, I know I could just shoot him in the face. But I also know these games well enough to know that it doesn't want me to do that.
Right.
There's got to be another way in, and so I just started wandering around looking for ways to get in, and where is this? What is this? Like, and eventually you find, behind a certain up a thing over here, around this, in that, open that in there, behind a thing. Oh, there's a vent. But it took me like 20 minutes to find the goddamn vent, and it was just this weird the worst I've ever felt it in is Dishonored, where like. There's this thing where, like, okay, if I take the most straightforward solution to this, which is kill the guy who's in my way, or just like, there's a room full of dudes that are patrolling the thing, well, I'm just going to take you out. Inevitably, the game is kind of going to kind of look at you like, really? Like, kind of, like I always feel like the game is judging me for taking the violent option. Like
I tend to play a mix. Like,
yeah,
I take it room by room, and generally what happens is I try to play it stealthy. Eventually, I screw up. The alarms go off, everyone comes after me, and it turns into a running gun. I run away, I wait for him to come down the hallway, and I mow him down as I come down the hallway, and then I go back into stealth until as long as I can get away with it, I sound an alarm again, and just rinse and repeat, basically.
The one thing I will say, like one of the problems Human Revolution had before the director's cut was that it didn't really respect the idea that you could play it stealth, and the boss fights were designed by another company that, like, if you had, the first boss fight...
That's insane, by the way.
Yeah, the boss... And you could tell, so like, it was... like, people were
obvious,
like, it's so weird. It's like the boss fights are made by different people. And they were. It really was.
Who does that? Just farms out the boss fights.
I know. It's
so bizarre.
And, like, there were... Early on, if you went to the first boss fight and you'd, like, spec'd your Jensen completely out for, like, stealth and hacking... you could end up in a situation where you couldn't beat that
the game.
guy.
Yeah, I know.
And you couldn't beat the first boss.
Yeah.
And, the director's cut solved, for that. I will say, they clearly learned that lesson in this game. This game has tons of different ways to approach everything.
Everything.
And there's even moments where you're like, after you do a thing, you look back, I could have done that. I could have gone through here. I could have done that. I could have done that. I could have activated that. I could have... Like, they... even little minor things that are not, like, story important, like, they give you,
little
like, 2, 3, 4 ways sometimes
it's
to
really
do
crazy.
It's
like
very impressive.
Like, the very first mission, I'm not really spoiling anything, it's like one of the very first things you have to do is you have to meet this guy in the bookstore. And the game kind of plots out this way for you to do it, where you you try to go and meet him. They're like, nope, you can't come here. You need like a special pass or whatever. And then you find out there's this person who's counterfeiting the passes. Then you go and find the counterfeit person. Then she tells you, so you can do this like 7, 8-step process and finally meet the guy that you want to. Or I discovered, after I had done it, I found a grate, and I could have skipped all of those steps. It's insane. I could have skipped every one of those steps and went immediately into that bookstore. And that, to me, is freaking awesome. So I got burned on the first mission, but it changes how I look at everything after that now. Now, every mission after that, I'm like, okay, well, the game is telling me to do it this way, but I guarantee there is a much easier, faster way to do this. And you start looking at the environment differently, doing exactly what you said. Oh, here's this grate. Where does this grate take me? Oh, it takes me out into this alleyway where there's nobody, and I can climb up here, and now I'm on the roof. And then it comes to this, and I love how the game does that, man. How it just kind of, it's like a butterfly in a cocoon, and it spreads its wings, and you're like, oh, wow, look at the options that this game gives me. And then that's just extra to the combat and how you handle each little scenario with each enemy. And I love the freedom that this game provides me. But going back to what you were saying, like, I don't like the game setting or the aesthetic of it. Like, I don't, people call this steampunk. I don't really think it's steampunk.
Oh, it's not steampunk at all.
I think it's just like
it's
kind of
cyberpunk.
like cyberpunk or whatever. It just seems like generic futuristic action to me. Like, there's really nothing that makes it look unique. The guys, all the soldiers still look like meatheads with like spacesuits on. Like,
well, the funny thing, like, well, yeah, it does. It definitely looks. Tell you what, it keeps reminding me of is Half-Life 2.
yeah,
And part of that is because it's an Eastern European city, and
Yeah.
I associate, that city in Half-Life 2 is sort of the prototypical first-person Eastern European game city. You know?
Right.
And but I know it's Prague. I know it's a real place. I've been to
Right.
Prague. I know, but it's like
Beautiful city,
but like with that plus all the high-tech checkpoints plus all the guys in the big like battle armor, I'm just like it looks like the Combine invaded. Frankly.
Yeah.
The other thing about it is, like, look, it's a beautiful game on PC. It is just
it's beautiful on
astounding.
PlayStation 4 as well. Yeah,
And except
technically at least.
the lip sync is like last gen. Like their mouths don't match their words when they talk, even in like the
there's
pre-recorded
a lot of
cutscenes.
talking.
And like
There's a
you
lot
can
of
see
talking.
like the teeth and the tongue are doing the right moves, but it's like the lips are like everybody's on Botox or something. It's very strange. And I can't tell if it's like a mistake or if it's like something's not working
Or one
in
of those
my game.
PC
or something.
things.
Yeah, it might be a PC thing. I don't know. But the fact that like the pre-recorded cutscenes are also like that makes me wonder if it's just a shortcoming of the engine.
Yeah.
The other thing is like it's feels much less stylized than Human Revolution. Human
it's way
Revolution
less.
had like that kind of yellow filter over everything.
Well,
and,
their whole
like,
theme was gold. I
Right.
don't know if you noticed or not. There's a couple like nods to that game. Like there's one man that you meet early on in the game, and he is wearing like a gold. I mean, it looks like it's made out of gold shirt.
Oh, is that the guy from the first game?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like there
He's
are.
wearing and his bionic hands are bright gold too.
Yeah. So there are like nods to it, but you're
Right.
right. This does not have like a distinctive visual style whatsoever.
And because of that, like, it might be just me, but I think Adam Jensen doesn't fit the world.
I
of
agree
this game.
1000%.
Like he looks like a cartoon.
I didn't
compared
like
to
him that
everything
much in the
else.
last game.
No, he wasn't a great
I don't find him
design.
very charismatic or engaging.
And
or-
he's kind of like a second-rate Solid Snake.
Yeah.
In character-wise, pretty
You're right,
much.
yeah.
But like just even more now, his design doesn't feel like it fits the world because the world is so believe and like you can't see yourself. You can't even see yourself in mirrors,
That's
which is
bullcrap.
You can't see yourself.
Why is that?
I don't know. Like, you can't look down and see your body.
I know.
And he's not in mirrors.
No.
I was shocked that he didn't show up in mirrors.
Well, they also try to do, like, the whole Metroid Prime thing, where before, like, you start playing, the camera swoops around it. But it doesn't actually go into his head. It goes around behind him, and you just look at his hair, and then it cuts, and you're like... And, like, the takedowns in the game. Like, they're like, pre-rendered or something. Yeah. What the hell?
Very weird. I mean, that's how the first game did it, too.
It cuts to black, and then it, like, is so... I know, but, like...
There are so
I thought that was, like, a limitation of the last generation of hardware. Apparently, it's either an engine issue, or
it's a choice. I think that's a choice.
It's a bad choice.
Yeah.
It takes you completely
There's a couple
out
of
the
bad
action.
choices. The other thing I don't like is they kept the whole, like, you cannot upgrade your batteries because you have to use the battery power to do the cyborg stuff.
Yeah.
You cannot upgrade the batteries to just recharge the whole bar. It drops every time you use something, it drops down the bar charge limit until it gets to, like, this minimum, and it will always but it's basically just enough to, like, do one takedown or do one major action.
Yeah.
Right? And to get more than that, you have to pop battery cells to, like, give your biocells to get more. I hate that.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Give me a mana bar or stop teasing me. Like, and I know they're trying to kind of limit, so you can't just, like, run through and do, like, those takedowns on everybody. But I also feel like if you would make the takedowns more real time, you wouldn't have to limit my energy like that because I'd have to be doing things as it happens.
Why do you have to be a bionic man to do a takedown?
I don't know.
You don't. It's not like he even really uses his augmentations. It's just like he just, like, palms somebody in the jaw. It's like,
ostensibly because he's so strong, that's what knocks them out when they do that, I guess.
But the humans can do that. Like, there's tons of games where you play as humans where there are takedowns. You can just choke somebody out. Like,
he does. I mean, the kills I think look cooler because he usually uses the blades in his arm or whatever.
For sure.
But when if you're trying to do non-lethal, it really looks dull.
It does.
There's not really much happening. It's just him going tap tap punch, and that's it. Like, basically, there's a lot of different ones, but they're all basically him punching a guy in the face.
Pretty much. But I like all the augmentation stuff. I think
augmentation stuff is cool. You do feel really powerful after a couple hours of upgrading. And
you can feel it. Every upgrade you can feel in the game, which
definitely.
is not always the case.
And
especially for a game that's 30 to 40 hours long.
Yeah, I do think I was not pleased because I bought the Green Man Gaming full. They basically had the full deluxe version with season pass for the same price as retail.
Regular. Wow.
So it was like $64, I think.
Wow.
So
great deal.
So I just got that.
Yeah.
And it comes with the pre-order thing of, like, all the upgrade packs. Or, like, you get basically a bunch of ammo and Praxis kits and guns and whatever in this storage thing. You transfer them and stuff. Here's the thing: some of the stuff is permanent, like the guns and stuff. But, like, the credits and the bullets and stuff like that, they're categorized as consumable, and they will never show up in another playthrough.
Wow!
If you started a new game of this game, if you start a new game, all that pre-order stuff doesn't show up again. Just the stuff they consider permanent, like the guns, the hardware.
What?
But consumable stuff like the credits and that stuff is gone. If you use it, if you transfer it to your inventory for one game, no other playthrough will have that.
This game has been a disaster from the beginning for all its...
Oh, yeah. Remember with the original pre-order scheme where they were going to unlock all these other things? Yeah. So all this stuff... So if you start a new game of this after already using it once...
It's gone.
It's gone. And they've already said, like, the developer said, like, yes, this is how it works. It's not a bug. That's how it works. And the wording was something like, this is a first-party decision, which to me sounds like Square made us do that.
Or does it mean, like, the platform holders made them do that?
No, because there's just too many different platforms. A first-party decision makes it sound to me like Square wants to sell you microtransaction bundles of this shit. And that is why we couldn't do it.
It shouldn't be that big of a surprise.
No, but I'm saying, like, the fact that is not renewable for a new playthrough is, and you don't need any of it to get through the game. I mean, it's all bonus. I mean, it's you don't need any of it at all. The game is more than generous with money and Praxis upgrades and ammo and all. And anything you don't have, you can craft. I mean, it's not like anything in that pre-order bonus is necessary to play the game, but it's just so cheap.
It
like
really is.
It's just such a. It's dirty. It feels dirty to me. And
what do you think of the story?
I like it. I mean, it's
Direct continuation of the
direct
last
continuation.
game. They even show you a synopsis of the last game.
For something that's been made over the last 3 years, it's shockingly current.
Man, it's mind-blowing.
Like,
It's like current up to like the last like 4 months.
Last few months, yeah. And like not even just like the OGS Lives Matter bullshit.
Which is crazy on its own.
Yeah, crazy in the sense that like not really the time.
Do you think that they slipped that in last minute?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
No question. I mean, the Black Lives Matter thing has been around for 3 years now, so it's not like they needed...
Oh, it has.
Oh, yeah. It was founded in 2013 and came to prominence in summer 2014 with the Ferguson stuff.
Right.
So it's been around long enough for them to have known, but for it to be a big hot-button current event, which I think has happened mainly in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, it was known, but it hasn't been something that is mentioned in every political speech until like the last year or so. Like, yeah, they were probably working up to the wire on that. I don't know if that's a wise choice because while it is believable, like let's say this.
I think it's a terrible choice.
Oh, first off. That's a lot of shit is apparently going to happen in the next 13 years.
Yeah.
Because like this takes place in 2029.
Right.
And I'm like full body cyborg replacement in the next. I mean that's more than the iPhone coming out.
Well, I don't know. If you saw some of the promotional stuff they put out for this game, like there's a little girl that has like a cyborg arm. Like
the jump to me is in terms of that tech is the leap to the idea of people replacing limbs.
Right.
Not someone who has lost a limb or born without it, or is came back from a war without it.
Say, cut my good leg off.
Cut my arm off and give me the thing that can shoot the tasers out of it.
Right.
Like, that's going to be an interesting bridge to cross.
Yeah.
But if that kind of divide happened, I can totally see OG's Lives Matter being the slogan they adopt because of the Black Lives Matter
for sure.
The movement.
Well, I think X Lives Matter will probably be something that'll go on for a long time. Yeah.
But I don't know if that was a good call to use in a game while this is still going on.
Yeah, I think it's really insensitive.
Very, very believable, but it's like I don't know. I don't like to say this, but it's like I feel like it would almost have been more acceptable in like a book than in like a video game. I don't know if video games are respected enough or trusted enough to treat that kind of thing with respect. It's also a bit of a weird comparison because like the reason all this shit is happening in Deus Ex is because at the end of the last game, the guy up in the Arctic like caused like all people with OGs to go crazy, and those people we find out in this game killed 50 million people.
Yeah.
Like there's no comparison here.
Yeah.
In terms of like terrorist attacks or police injustice, like there's nothing to compare that to.
No.
Well,
there's also
the idea that suddenly 50 million people. Also, think about so say everybody with OGs, and they do go into this, but it's like everyone with OGs goes crazy and kills the people near them. Most of those people are going to be in their houses or near their loved ones or their friends or their coworkers. These people murdered their families.
Oh yeah.
And like no one came out of this okay.
Yeah.
That is a societally traumatic event that would take forever. I mean, this is only supposed to be 2 years later.
One of the subplots of the whole game is how once the world goes OG,
right.
Other people have the ability to control the OGs. I mean, that's kind of the subplot of the whole thing.
Yeah, everybody becomes a weapon for
someone else.
The Illuminati. They actually
one of the shots early on shows one of the OGs killing himself, shooting himself in the head, like being controlled by somebody else somewhere.
Yeah. Which was like became a thing in the first. Like that's the first section of the first game. I think is Jensen runs across that guy who's like it was the anti-OG group. But their hacker is an OG, who then shoots himself, and it turns out he was being controlled by somebody else.
Right.
And like the idea that OGs can be controlled by outside forces becomes a whole concern because they're basically superheroes
that are weaponized,
superhumans that can be weaponized by anyone. And then there's more of that in this game where like Jensen's got all these because you have to have new abilities in the new game.
Right.
And the way they explain the new abilities is like someone installed a whole bunch of crazy experimental shit in your body and like. We don't know, and it's like, and he's like, he didn't know that was there. There was no way to tell, but somebody had done it. And it's like it's that kind of body horror of like you don't have control over your own body because everyone kind of every human body is sort of the same, on a very basic level. But now everyone's like looking at Adam Jensen and going like, I've never seen stuff like this. You don't know what's under that coat anymore.
Right. Well, also
it's the ultimate concealed
carry.
Big
part of our society in particular is having your rights over your own body.
Right.
And I mean, it kind of goes to that whole abortion thing, and then there's like the whole like the faction that wants to deport all the Augs, and that has a little bit of like the whole Trump undertone to it.
And you've also got kind of a Second Amendment thing happening too, because it's like, now you're literally talking about the right to bear arms,
right?
Because the gun is in your arm.
The gun is your arm.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then I thought initially it was weird that
and despite all of this stuff that's so relevant to what's happening now, I still find myself completely disinterested in the story.
The world is way more interesting than the actual narrative that Adam Jensen is going through.
The people are just so boring and like cardboard. Like, I just don't care about any of them. And that's like the first thing you need to do with a story for anything is make the reader, the viewer, care about the players. And like this game starts and it's just like there's like 50 people that are introduced in like the first like 20 minutes. You're like, who the hell are all these people? Yeah. And that's after you watched like a 15-minute synopsis of what happened in the last game where you're introduced to another 50 people. It's just like,
and then a whole briefing section.
Yeah, it's just
and then you're dropped in like the tutorial like mission at the very beginning. Like, it's on one hand like it kind of shows you it shows you all the cards to some degree. But it also like it's like the most generic infiltration, like special ops mission you can imagine. And it drops you on the roof of this construction site in Dubai, which is supposed to be like their big like, oh, look how pretty the game is. But the part of the problem is like the water's great, the draw distance is great, the everything, you're high up, everything's blowing around, like there's physics everywhere. There's the sandstorm's great. But you're dropped on this roof, and you look out, and one of the big things that's happening that like makes this, there's hundreds and hundreds of seagulls.
Yeah.
And these are the worst seagull models and animations I have seen since probably PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
They're all flapping their wings at the exact same rate, and the bodies don't move at all. They just sort of like like move on a straight line through the air, and it's the whole game kind of has this weird like. It looks great if you look at it, and then if you start to look a little closer, you're like, wait, what is that? Why is that? Why is everyone's skin look like it's kind of dirty? Why is that?
It's like when people tell me, "Oh, you don't look a day over 30," and then I'm like, "Look a little closer."
Yeah. Lean in.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I mean, that's nitpicking, but
But I think overall the game looks great. I'm playing the PlayStation 4 version. There is pretty significant screen tearing. But otherwise, it's definitely in that top tier
like
of
I said,
PlayStation 4
this
games.
is the first game to really push my Titan X setup.
I mean, look, it's not Uncharted 4. It doesn't quite get into that area.
No, and it still kind of suffers from... they work a little too hard to make you feel like you're in someone's head, I think. There's a lot of, like... Well,
his narration is constant.
I mean, like, in terms of, like, the camera presentation, where, like...
it does the whole spin around in the back of the head.
No, I mean, like when you're actually playing the game, like there's kind of an uncomfortable, like artificial
overlay,
acceleration to how you turn, and like when you're
the aiming in this game
when
is
you
terrible.
climb and when you jump down from things, there's a very exaggerated camera shake, like like
it'll show your hands coming down. Yeah,
and it's just like to me that just sort of makes me annoyed. Like, it just sort of like, I'm like, just let me play. Like, I know it's not realistic to have the camera be steady and moving around all the time with, like, no head bob. Yeah. But, like, I think this game goes too far the other direction.
I have problems aiming. And feels like it's way too jerky.
Well, part of that is
I'm getting used to it, but
you're expected to upgrade the gunplay thing, which does help. But, like, you start out very shaky. Because the thing is, the game, another Metroid comparison, it does the Samus thing where he starts out pretty well upgraded, and then very early on he loses everything.
And then you have to earn it
and
all
back. It's like all of a sudden you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like because for some reason I guess you need software programming to have your bionic legs jump higher.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. It's like it feels like maybe your legs should just work or not work.
Yeah.
But, okay, sure, we'll go with that.
New firmware, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, can change the experience completely. It's like how they upgraded the firmware on my Vive, and now my Vive can weld.
Yeah. I will say, though, I am enjoying this game.
Yeah.
I'm having a good time with it. I've just kind of let the story go in one ear and out the other. I don't really care what's going on with the characters that much. But the gameplay, the emergent moment-to-moment gameplay to me is worth the cost of the game.
Well, I think like similar to kind of Fallout or Skyrim, the main story isn't particularly grabbing me, but like the side quests are great. And
there's lots of really cool little Easter eggs and nods in this game.
And finding like just exploring and finding little, it's the opposite of No Man's Sky. It's like exploring and finding little things that they place. One of my favorites was there's an art gallery very near where your first apartment is, and if you go down in the basement, there's like a little stage with a play, and if you look at the ebooks, they're doing the play called Rossum's Industrial Robots, which is a 1920 Czech play by a guy named Karl. I can't remember his last name, but that play is about robots. About this guy makes all these robots, which are actually biological, like replicants in Blade Runner, but he builds them. They're biological people, but he builds them, and they're basically meant to be slaves. They're meant to be workers, and there's a big revolution, and they kill all the humans. It's the play that's where the word robot comes from, because that's the Czech word for worker, which comes from their word for slave.
And this is happening in Prague, which
that's why it's in Prague. Because one of my early criticisms, I was like, I feel like Prague. I've been to Prague. I know people from Prague. I know Czech people. They don't do the segregated, kill them all, ghettoize. They don't really, like that's Prague. It doesn't really roll like that. But because Prague is the birthplace of the modern idea of the robot, I think that's why they've said it there. And like that little nod was like, oh, that's such a cool like little thing.
I agree with you though. Like the detail in the game is incredible. Which I think makes like the bigger overarching story all the more disappointing. It's like, it is more interesting to talk to the little NPCs and side characters and do the side quests than it is to go through the main quest.
I'll say this.
But the gameplay is so fun that I'll struggle through it.
The gameplay in the world is way more interesting than who I am.
I like the gameplay in the world in this way more than Fallout 4.
Yeah, I like it way more than the first game.
Yeah.
I think it feels much more organic as opposed.
It does. It's still very similar, though.
It's similar, but like
I mean, if you did not, here's what I would say: if you did not like Human Revolution, you will not like this game.
But this is that, but more so. Yeah. And I think the expansion of the size of the areas and the organic feel of the areas makes it, because like Human Revolution, while I liked it, it felt smaller and more linear. And there were different vents to go through, but you were still kind of this one.
Oh, this
there's
places
like
spaghetti, dude.
It's crazy.
It really is
almost
crazy.
Like it reminds me. It was like playing Doom this year, where it's like, oh, this is what first-person shooter levels used to be like with all the recursive tunnels and everything. And this reminds me more of an old school. Yeah, but like, it reminds me of like if you like the old sort of System Shock thing. I think these levels are more like that than any of that genre sort of subgenre's successors have gotten so far.
And it does the Deus Ex name proud.
Yeah. I will say
totally
this.
Deus Ex.
If they do a third one, and I suspect they will,
we'll see.
Get a new protagonist.
Yeah.
Like I think Adam Jensen is done. And I don't know. Maybe I don't know if he dies at the end of this or whatever happens. But
I haven't finished it. So
I'm not finished, so I don't know. Maybe they will by default. I don't know.
I hope so too, man.
I think he doesn't
do anything for me in the last game, and he doesn't do anything for me in this one.
He doesn't fit the world. He feels kind of archaic, and also like he's so out of place in the. It's like everyone's like acting fairly naturalistic and talking about things, and he's sitting there doing his Solid Snake impression, and it's like, dude, you're in a world where like people who are augmented, especially very visibly like you are not trusted, and where maybe don't have the same facial hair as the devil.
Yeah.
And like. I mean, it's hard enough to trust a guy who has his sunglasses built into his face.
Yeah.
It's like he's running around wearing trench coats with paisley shoulders, like some kind of like weird goth who could only make his clothing out of his grandma's furniture, and like with the shades on all times indoors. Like even though I'm like, dude, they're on your face. You can take them off. And
Yeah.
And where do they go?
I don't know.
Do they go in his head?
They go up to his eyebrows. I don't know.
They go sideways.
They just kind of just
and like
zip in
so
and
like
out.
do they deconstruct
little frames like
do they deconstruct or do they like go inside? Because he sleeps with the. I mean, obviously these things don't come off.
Yeah, they're permanently.
So he just sleeps like that. Can you imagine rolling over it on that in the middle of that?
If we really try to break it down, it gets more and more absurd the deeper down the hole you go.
But what I'm saying is, like, I feel like you could make an interesting protagonist in this world that is not quite some... I mean, he just feels like he's from a previous gaming generation, and I don't just mean last generation.
Right.
I mean, like, Adam Jensen feels like he sort of stepped out of around the same era as the original Deus Ex, like 99, 98.
Which some fans of the series may appreciate.
Sure, but
I don't personally.
I don't think Deus Ex really has to be a sunglassed, trench-coated, gravelly voiced, like, emotionless badass.
Well, I also feel like this guy tries to have a gravelly voice, but he really doesn't.
Yeah, he does. Well, yeah, he's kind
of soft-spoken.
Yeah, well, he's also sort of running into, like, later Metal Gear Solid David Hayter problem, where like David Hayter seemed to kind of lose the ability to do the voice properly.
Right, because he was trying to do it so bad he overdid it.
Right.
And just couldn't nail it anymore.
And like this guy, well, he's not bad at all. Yeah. Like for the most part, there's certain line deliveries where I'm just like,
well, he like trails off, and sometimes it's hard for me to like hear him. Like
the sound mix is weird on this one. I've had to turn it way up, and I had to turn the music down a little bit actually because the sound mix is very hard to hear, and it's mainly him. Like early on, you can have a phone like a telescreen phone conversation with David Sarif from the first game, the guy in the gold shirt. Yeah. And I could hear Sarif fine, but every time, because it was playing music to accompany, talking to your old boss kind of thing.
Right.
And when he would talk and be fine, and then Adam would reply, and I couldn't hear a damn thing Adam was saying. So I turned it way up, and after that cutscene, I brought the music down and the voices up, and it's better, but like he is still mixed very low. Yep. I know this is very nitpicky and meta, but like
that's a problem. Though you want to be able to hear what the
right, but it's also like this is an ongoing thing. I think is going to happen whereas games get more and more production value wise become more and more high level. I mean, this thing is amazing looking. Like when you just look at it on a macro level, this thing is incredible. So of course I'm going to notice these weird little things. The fact that the mouths don't work right.
That's the way it is, though. When everything looks so good, you notice like the little anomalies even more.
The fact that we finally this generation have hit a point where people's clothing are not necessarily part of their character model. So when someone turns,
actually like move independently,
their coat doesn't stretch like their body does, and it kind of moves independently, and that's great. But now I'm noticing that the people with the bionic arms who are not a main character, their bionic arms bend and stretch the way a normal human arm does, and I'm like, that's not.
We're walking down Uncanny Valley,
and that's also kind of the great lesson of video games is like it can always be better.
It definitely can.
It'll always keep going up.
Matt, would you recommend this game for a purchase?
Yes, if you like the last one or Dishonored. Because he does get a very Dishonored style ability.
He does, yeah.
I would say yes. If it's they don't really make these kinds of games that often.
They don't.
So if this is something that you're into, without hesitation, I would say buy it. Maybe not the season pass. Wait and see on that. Cause
I don't buy any season passes.
Especially because it looks like the content for the season passes on this is going to be standalone stories that you just play separately. And I don't find that particularly interesting, really. I'm more interested in games that kind of incorporate it. So, but on the plus side, that means that you lose nothing by waiting to see what they are. Yeah. Because you're not going to like miss out. And even the first one, if you go to select it in the extras thing or whatever, or JC's Stories, I think it's called, or Jensen's Stories, it actually warns you like. This takes place during the game and could spoil some things, so maybe you should play the game first. Right. So I wouldn't worry about the DLC. Just play the main game.
I recommend this game to anyone who likes open world action RPGs. Even if you're not into stealth, you can totally play this game like a shooter if you want to.
Yeah,
I think it's more challenging if you try to play it as a shooter though, because
it is.
If you play it on the default difficulty setting, one is hard to aim. But two, it doesn't take that much to die.
No, you die real fast.
And the other part too is that the checkpoint system isn't all that generous. Like, before I learned that I needed to like manually save pretty regularly, like the first time I died, I was like, oh crap! Like I got taken back like a good ways to like something I didn't even realize was a checkpoint. So, but otherwise, like I'm having a blast with this game. If you're the type of person who has like your game eval ratings and have the story cranked all the way up, I would probably stay away from it. Even though the side stuff is pretty engaging.
unless you can, unless like say Fallout 3, you hated the main story, but you really enjoyed it because you got to look through buildings and sort of piece together what happened in those, the environmental sort of storytelling. There's a lot of stuff like that in this game that's really good. So yeah, I feel like most people know if they're going to like this game or not, just from past. It's not really an unknown, but all I can say is that it is Human Revolution, but far more so. And I would say better in every way. And I like Human Revolution.
Yeah, me too. The other thing I would say, too, is that it's not a game where you're not getting what you think you're getting. So with all the uproar over No Man's Sky and saying, well, was this stuff supposed to be in there? Was it not?
This is exactly what you thought.
This is exactly what you thought it was going to be. So I guess that's the best way to describe it. I definitely recommend it if you like.
Although if you are going to buy it on PC, have a rig, man. This thing is a beast.
It's the first game to bring his rig down.
It was
dual Titan X's.
Yeah, so I could get it, and part of that is because it doesn't support DirectX 12, and I think they have some optimization to go. But I can run it. I had to do some experimenting, but I can run it at 1440p, 60 frames a second. Everything's set to ultra except contact shadows. I had to turn that down from ultra to on. Yeah. So, and that saves me like 40 frames a second. I mean,
Matt, by the way,
whatever that is.
Nobody
huge.
Watching this has a rig like yours.
I don't.
So
think,
you try to give them tips on it.
No,
they're just like, whatever, bro. I can't even run it.
No. If you have like a 1080 or a 1070, you can run it like that too.
Really?
Yeah. There are cards better than mine now, and people have them.
The Pascal card they just
like this is not a crazy level of power really anymore.
I don't know about that. All right,
I mean, it is a crazy level of power, but there are a lot more people that can match up to that, and I think some of them are probably on this site.
Yep,
because we're enthusiasts.
Well, here's the first question. Segues nicely for our Q&A from Mr. 60. Matt, do you have any advice for a first-time rig builder in terms of what to stay clear of or other recommendations?
Have Morgan Webb help you build it. That's what I did.
Well, I think everybody would like to have Morgan build a PC with them.
Here's the main thing. Get whatever you want. PC Parts Picker is your site of choice. It works within your budget. It'll make sure everything's compatible. It'll find you the best deals. It'll find you the best shipping. So PCPartsPicker.com is where you start. When it comes time to put them together, you're building it from scratch. Here's the thing. And this happened when my girlfriend built her PC, and we forgot this lesson when she put her new one together recently. You have to put like a bracing bracket on the back of the underside of the motherboard to support the fan on the CPU. And if you forget that and put the motherboard in the case before you do that, you have to take the whole thing apart and do it again. Yeah. So the first thing you do is open your fan, your CPU fan, and figure out what bracing thing needs to be on the bottom of the motherboard and get that in place. Then put the motherboard in the PC case, because we did that backwards with my girlfriend's PC, and we had to take the whole thing apart and do it all over again. Yeah. And I remember after that had happened, I remembered that was the first thing Morgan said when we started. She's like, okay, first thing we have to put this thing on the back of the motherboard, because I didn't do that when she built her PC before that, and we had to take the whole thing. So that's my main advice is put the CPU fan bracer thing on the back of the motherboard before you install the motherboard in the PC. Everything else is pretty much just plug and play. It's so much easier
now than it used to be. The other thing I would say is always think about cable routing. Where are your cables going to go? Because you're snapping everything together. It is really easy. It doesn't take much expertise to build a rig now. But what you'll find is if you just go snapping things together, some cables may not be long enough to reach where they need to go, or they might get in the way. Or if you're trying to install a big graphics card, they take up so much space now. You have to consider that. So try to route your cables in a way that they all kind of come together and kind of snake down one side of your rig. And in some cases now have channels for you to actually route your cables.
And also I recommend the little plastic tie things to just once you get it in place, once you get everything, and even if it's useful, just okay, I've got all this stuff wired up. Okay, you're off to the side. I don't need to. It's easy for installing further things after that. Just try to keep it neat, basically. Yeah. And for God's sake, don't forget to plug. The power connections. That's kind of the final step. Is
Yeah.
plugging all the little things into the power.
Which can be a little confusing on your
confusing,
graphics
but
card.
remember, Google is your friend, and just
YouTube. They'll show you how to do everything.
Someone has done this. Whatever
Yeah.
you are trying to put together in whatever configuration, whatever it is, someone made a YouTube video of it. I guarantee you, it's
I
out
would
there.
just search for the model number of your motherboard.
Yeah.
And you'll
Yeah.
find somebody who literally has that exact motherboard and probably very similar components that you bought, and you can just watch them put the whole thing together
Yep.
right in front of you.
Yep.
SSD drive for your operating system.
Yes.
I'd recommend.
SSD for
Spend
the
the
operating
extra
system.
cash for your OS.
Get a giant, 7,500 RPM for your main drive, but like SSD is great for, we want to put Windows on that, and you want to put. Sometimes it helps you. I have The Witcher 3 on that, and it does run faster.
Oh yeah. But for your OS, it is worth every penny
Yeah.
to put it on an SSD instead of a regular drive.
That's it, basically. I mean,
have fun.
yeah,
It's
it's fun, and once you get it all together and like you boot it up for the first time, all the sweat and anger is worth it.
Yep.
Until it breaks the
Yeah.
next time. PC gaming.
All right, this next one's from Kadaz. I love that name. With Sony announcing its own press conference in September and EA revealing more about Mass Effect in November, have we reached a point where gaming is mainstream enough for publishers to forego E3 completely? It's hard for a business to justify the cost of that kind of floor space when they can generate the same hype themselves.
No.
No. Not yet.
That is not remotely the same hype.
Well, there was a question in Pachter Factor this week about, or actually it was last week, why gaming hasn't gone more mainstream. And he made a very clear point. It's like, your mom knows who Brad Pitt is, and she knows that he got a tattoo or whatever.
It will be mainstream when we are grandparent age.
Right. Does she know
basically.
who Sean Murray is?
No.
Nope. My wife doesn't know who Sean Murray is. So, yeah, gaming still has a long way to go before it's mainstream. Now, mainstream enough so that E3 is irrelevant? No.
No, not for a lot. And also, like, even if E3 is no longer the media, press conference circus that we think of it as, E3 will still exist. E3 will be the business conference where all those deals and all those negotiations are made. It just won't be anything that enthusiasts care about anymore.
Yeah.
That conference will always happen. The question will be, does it remain this crazy, glitzy, loud rock concert expo?
Right.
And that is what might change.
Yep. I think there's going to continue to be more fan-oriented events.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like, that's kind of where it's heading. But you're talking here about the crown jewel of E3.
It's just too convenient for all the things that can happen in that 1 week, business-wise, finance-wise, marketing-wise. I mean, it's still the biggest stone to kill the most birds with.
Yeah, people don't realize that behind the scenes at E3, there's all this other stuff that goes on. And this is something that, like, no YouTuber is ever going to change. Like, this is where deals get done. Like, where publishers sign new games. It's where developers find publishers for their indie games. It's where people meet to bring new developers onto their teams. There's all this stuff that's going on underneath the surface that you never see, that even if that were the last thing to exist, E3 would still be something worth going to. So, here's the next one from Sore Fear. What game podcast do you guys really enjoy? And what non-game podcast do you guys really enjoy? I love GameFace. Thank you, Sore Fear.
I don't really listen to too many gaming podcasts.
No?
Unless, like, Jim Sterling's videos count.
No.
No, I don't. I'm not a podcast person,
No?
really. Non-gaming, I listen to, like, hardcore history sometimes, like history and, like, astronomy related, which I mainly use as sort of background noise while I'm doing other things.
I think that's what most people use podcasts
Yeah,
for.
I know. But I just don't, like, a lot of the thing with, like, a gaming podcast thing is, like, most of the prominent gaming podcast stuff, like, if I want to know what those guys think about games, I'll text them.
Yeah.
Like,
Or
like
you'll
it's
you
just,
talk
or
to them
I've
on
heard it already.
Facebook,
Yeah, it's like, yeah, of course I know what Patrick Klepek thinks about whatever this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just like, a lot of the popular ones kind of seem to mostly be about things that aren't gaming. Like, they don't
Yeah.
stay on topic much, and that doesn't interest me as much. So, I don't know. There might be some out there that I'm missing that I don't know about, and I'm just missing the time of my life. But it's just not something I really do. If I have time to listen or watch something, I'm going to watch a movie.
Yeah. I have to listen to gaming podcasts all the time. And look, before we curate a gaming podcast as Sifted, I do not sit and listen to the whole thing. It's impossible. Because what I found is that a lot of the podcasts and video casts are starting to extend their length to like ours now. Like when Sifted first launched, like every podcast was an hour pretty much. And now they're all starting to stretch out to be 2 hours and even 3 hours in some cases. So there's no way I could listen to them all.
Put them on 8 times speed.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone said about our podcast one time. As far as the ones that I like, it's tough because one thing I would say too about other podcasts is that like people don't get very passionate. Like they kind of just sit there and they talk about things, but it's almost like they're just repeating press releases instead of actually like getting passionate and sharing opinions about things. So it's kind of hard.
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
I am
like,
way out of the game podcast loop, I guess.
yeah,
I
like
didn't
watch
know.
them or listen to them, and like they're just kind of sit there and just repeat what was already in the story that they're talking about. Everyone goes, yeah, yeah. It's like I never see like heated debate on any podcast or video cast except for this one. Like never. Everyone just kind of
thought that was,
sits
like,
and
the
says
point.
their opinion. Everyone just agrees with each other. It's really weird.
Discourse is dead. Like,
I mean, one thing I would say, I think I like the kind of funny guys because at least they have opinions that go against the grain. Like, I honestly feel like a lot of the gaming video casts and podcasts, all they're doing is just saying what people want to hear so that they get fans and people love them. And, I mean, it could be argued that that's how Kind of Funny got to where it was with Greg, is that, you know, he was kind of like the guy who was in the corner of the fans with PlayStation stuff. But what I've noticed is that once they built their audience and kind of left and did Kind of Funny, those guys do kind of go at each other a little bit. And it's not that much, but at least it's a little. Like, I just feel like too many gaming podcasts are too vanilla and uninteresting, to be honest with you. I don't know. That's just my opinion. As far as non-gaming podcasts, I listen to, right now I'm listening to like a ton of fantasy football podcasts because the season's coming up. And usually I spend a lot of time researching, but since I've launched Sifted, like I just don't have time to do it. So kind of like with Matt, it just plays in the background. Other than that,
I've listened to a lot of astronomy podcast stuff playing No Man's Sky.
I bet.
That's
That
what
makes
that's what I
sense.
do. I turn it down and I just listen to like Neil deGrasse Tyson do like Star Talk or something.
Yeah, and I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast because he covers a wide swath of topics. He has interesting people that come in. He gets really good interview subjects that come in on his show. And he's not afraid to piss people off and go against the grain a little bit. And I think a lot of times that's what makes an interesting podcast. So that's me. Here's one from Francis. Alex. Sony appears to be hitting with copyright strikes all the YouTubers that talked about the PS4 Slim after it leaked. Why do you think they're doing this? Isn't it easier to say nothing and just wait until it's officially announced on September 7th? Or maybe even announce it already ahead of this event?
I don't know. It's
It makes
very,
no
very
sense.
good question.
It makes no sense that Sony's doing this. I don't know why it's doing this.
You can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Nope. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, one. Two, they have no right to tell people to take this stuff down. This was not something that Sony gave these guys. These guys scooped it and got it. And, like, they have no leverage and no legal right to tell any of these people to take this stuff down. What they're doing is they're using their leverage to say, well, if you ever want to work with us again, you better take that down now or we're going to cut you out of all our code and all our events. And, of course, these YouTube people are petrified by that, and so they just fold and take the video down. So that's what's happening. Sony is flexing its muscles and being like, look, we're the gatekeeper, and if you don't do what we tell you, then we're not going to let you in the gate. That's pretty much what it comes down to. It's
which, by the way, is
dirty.
exactly what people used to complain about the press doing.
Exactly, yeah.
But now the YouTubers are doing the same thing, so
Yep.
what's the difference?
That all just petrifies them to think they'd be cut off by Sony.
But it's like, but that's the thing is like, you know, in the end, all press, all the YouTubes, all that stuff is just an extension of the PR arm, marketing arm.
Well, if you play their game,
yeah.
Like the one video, the unboxing video, they took it down, but I had snagged it before they took it down, and I posted it on Sifted. I don't care. Like Sony
the only
has,
way around that is just buy the game, play it, and review it yourself.
Sony has no hold on Sifted at all. Like, they are one of the publishers who has not given us code, doesn't give us hardware, nothing. They have completely blown us off. People that I worked with for 20 years just acted like we don't exist. So apparently we're not big enough for them. They don't want to work with us. But the good news is that they have no leverage at all. They can't tell us to do anything. They don't pay for any ads on Sifted. They don't give us anything. They do nothing for us. And so they're helpless. Like, we've become kind of the man of steel against Sony because...
And even if they did, we wouldn't care.
No, we really wouldn't.
We're jerks that way. So.
It's not even about being a jerk. It's just that Sony puts out so few games, and like I don't really care about going to his press conference anymore. I've gone to it like a million times. I know what happens at those things. I know that what we would get out of it, it does no good to our website. So,
and the stream is a better seat anyway.
Yeah. So they have no effect over us. But that's the beauty of being an independent game site. That's what people aren't getting. Like, it bothers me that some people don't want to support Sifted. It's like you don't understand what we could do if this site became huge. It's like we could completely turn everything upside down. Like we could, but for whatever reason, it is what it is. Here's one from Royden. Is there any way you guys could convince Adam Sessler to do a show for the site like the Pack?
I could ask him.
So I don't want to say too much here on the show, but I did talk to Adam at E3 about something along those lines. He's got another project in the works that may or may not be preventing something like that from happening. He's trying to figure it out whether he could actually even do it. He has a contract, and he's trying to figure out whether it's even possible for him. So don't think it's something that I haven't thought about. Trust me, I've been thinking about it for a long time. And I brought it up with Adam at E3 face-to-face, and he seems interested in it, but...
Adam's always interested in kind of like a Sessler soapbox sort of thing.
Right.
I think that would be a feasible thing if the contractual obligations could be straightened out, but...
I'm working on things behind the scenes, people, but I can't tell you everything that we're working on. And a lot of times when I talk to people, I can't tell you that I'm even talking... I probably shouldn't have even said that I've talked to Adam about this, to be honest with you. I probably shouldn't have said that, but...
Well, luckily we're not live, so...
But I think people wonder sometimes, what the hell is Shane doing trying to get new shows on the site?
Right, but I mean, just because it's like that common thing where it's like just because you haven't heard a media company or whatever talk about something doesn't mean they didn't think of it.
Exactly.
There's stuff happening.
And Adam's not the only one that I'm talking to, by the way. So, but yeah, I'm working on it. We'll see how it goes. We would certainly bend over backwards to make something happen with Adam. We love him as a friend before anything else, and we know he's great, and we know that you guys love him too, so we'd love to make something happen with him. MG Noxa, or is it MG Nova? I think maybe I mistyped that one. My apologies. Are games without a story mode relevant in Game of the Year discussions? Overwatch is my favorite game of the year, but I get the feeling that most sites will give out their awards to the games that had campaign full of epic set pieces and emotional moments instead of a game that is just fun.
I mean, you're not wrong in what you said there about Game of the Year things at the with various sites at the end of the year, but you don't need a story mode to be Game of the Year, I would say.
No,
Your Game of the remember your Game of the Year was Battlefield 2 that one year.
Yeah.
And that reminds me from the No Man's Sky episode. If you thought that argument was like some kind of knockdown, drag out like fight, you wouldn't last 5 minutes in some of the Game of the Year meetings I've been in.
Yeah.
Oh my God, people like. Things have been thrown. Like it is. I'm not kidding. It was, what made me think of that was the meeting about the Game of the Year that year, where you won a Battlefield 2 and like nobody else did.
Yeah.
And it got nasty.
Yeah.
It got down and dirty.
It does sometimes.
And you all come out of it fine. It's and it's something to laugh about now. But no, that thing on that No Man's Sky episode, that was like a 6 out of 10 maybe. Like
people don't get it. And you know what? You want to know why they don't get it? Is because every other freaking podcast and videocast is so vanilla. They're all afraid. See, that's the thing. They're all afraid that if they come off that way on camera, they won't be able to get a job somewhere else. And I've never cared about that, ever. Like, I've never been like, oh my gosh, if I get really passionate, someone's not going to hire me. Like, I've never looked at it that way. Like, I don't know. It would be boring as crap sitting and doing these shows day after day, like just vanilla.
That would be impossible. I don't know how I'd do that.
Certain personality. I mean, some people, all they care about is like rising up the ranks and getting a better job. Like, that's not who I am. So,
if I'm on a talking head show, I'm there to fight.
I'm not there to fight, but I want to inspire.
But that was the fun, like even on
like
feedback on G4. The most fun parts were like when we would all disagree on things.
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite G4 feedback podcast moment ever was when, God, I can't remember quite what game it was, but Steven Johnson, who's one of the web guys, a great dude, was talking about, we were talking about some game, it was a sci-fi kind of game, and he wasn't into it, and he's like, I just don't care, I don't buy all this stuff. I don't buy like, he's like, I'm more into like fireballs or casting magic. I don't buy like these spaceships and lasers and stuff. And I said,
you buy magic?
I said, Steve, spaceships and lasers exist. Like, you don't need to buy them. They're real. Like, no one can actually cast fireball, but I can take you to the space center and show you a spaceship. What are you talking about? And like, it just kind of like went off the rails at that point. Like Adam's falling out of his seat. Abby's just like crying on the table. It was great. That's when the great stuff happens. And at the end, like, we went at it about that, but like we come off those chairs, and Steve was like, "Dude, great fight." Like,
but see, the thing is, when you have a debate, like you end up getting to like the root of what you're discussing.
Right.
When you just sit there and say, yeah, you get to nothing. That's why I feel like a lot of those podcasts and videocasts just feel like they're just like repeating like press releases. It's almost like they're just repeating the news of the week for people who may have missed it. Like, I don't know what it is. But anyway, back to your question. I would agree that if you do not have a campaign in your game, you're kind of putting yourself behind the 8-ball for Game of the Year awards, because that's the 8-ball I was behind. That's the argument I had to make was, there's no campaign in Battlefield 2, but I've been playing this game for 200 hours already, and I'll probably play it for another 200. So
I think there's a very, there's the two sides of that coin. I think, or at least maybe the rock and the hard place you've been caught between in that regard is I think you have the Battlefield 2 argument on one hand, and then you have the Walking Dead Season 1 argument on the other hand, where, you have that, like, all you need is this really emotionally affecting moment to win Game of the Year versus being a game that you play for hundreds of hours.
I disagree with that. But.
Well, but that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
You also have to remember that Battlefield 2 was, like, groundbreaking. Mm-hmm. Like, you look at it now, you're like, every shooter's that way. Battlefield 2 was like, oh, my God. Like,
what I mean is, like, you are no stranger to disagreeing with sort of the crowd when it comes to the Game of the Year wisdom.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, without a doubt.
And I think that Overwatch fans are going to run headlong into that this fall. And
that said, I think Overwatch at this point has a really good shot. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, because here's the thing.
I'm still playing it.
I play it now and then. My girlfriend is like, it's just prestiged for the first time and all. I mean, people are seriously into that. And the other thing about it is the fandom has latched onto these characters more than the gameplay in some cases. And Blizzard is putting out those CG videos for each character. And as we see with Bastion last week, really going for the jugular in the emotional department. Yeah. And like, I think they are creating those connections, even though they don't have a story mode. And I think that argument, you're going to be able to make that argument pretty strongly for Overwatch when the time comes. Yep. So I think it's a valid concern. What MG Noxa or MG Nova is saying, I think that's a very valid thing to bring up.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question.
But I think Overwatch is equipped to have that fight.
I think it's got a very good shot. Let's see. AJ the Legend, what do you see being the first announced 4K video game release, and on which console? Do you have a specific title that you would like to see in 4K?
Well, I mean, I already run a bunch of stuff on 4K.
Yeah, you have
on my
PC.
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 But if you're talking about console stuff, I don't think that game is announced yet.
Gears of War 4.
Gears of War 4 runs in 4K on Windows, and it looks great.
It'll run on Scorpio in 4K when it comes out next year.
Yeah.
I mean, and Forza Horizon 3 is already running in 4K.
In terms of something that's like built for it.
Have the assets and everything ready. Yeah. So those will probably be, unless Sony pulls a rabbit out of his hat when it shows off Neo for the first time.
Yeah, unless Horizon Zero Dawn is... one way or the other, it'll have Horizon in the title. Let's go with that. Horizon Zero Dawn, Forza Horizon 3. That's my call.
I like that one. Our last question from Erebus Jones, Sifted VIP. What's your favorite Sifted achievement? I don't know if you can even answer that.
I guess I'll steal what's probably your answer, which is back in the day, which means you were there from day one.
Yeah, that's mine. It's I'm not going to tell you how many people are getting that achievement, but it's a small group of people, the people who really believed in the idea from the beginning and bought into it and subscribed. So, yeah, those are the founding members.
I don't have a whole lot of it. I have like 8.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and most
well,
of them
like I said, I'm like the highest leveled person on the site, and I only have 28. So,
and most of them are for clicking on a bunch of things. I have like hundreds. I think the achievements for 100 Sony stories and 100 stealth story. I must have been reading a lot of Metal Gear
probably
stuff.
Yeah.
And 100. I think is there a space one?
Yep.
I think I have that for all the No Man's Sky stuff I was reading.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have a tremendous number. I've been meaning to look at that achievements kind of discussion thread and sort of figure, because I do have the achievement hunter bone in the body. So.
Yep. So that's it, everyone. Yeah, this show probably will be up midday tomorrow, because we actually shot this a little later than we did last week's episode. Last week we had an editor waiting for us to finish the show. He grabbed the footage and cut it together really quick. This episode, editor's not getting started until the morning. So you probably won't be seeing this until late afternoon Friday or early Friday evening. Regardless, we hope you guys have an excellent weekend. We'll see you online for some Titanfall 2. Patched and fixed, probably. We'll see how that goes. But everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you next week, probably with another episode like this one. We'll see.
Yeah. Maybe we can, if we do it like this again, maybe we'll shoot early again. Maybe get
it might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Or maybe you and I try to like run the TriCaster while we record the show. That might be kind of fun, just like almost like a video game DJ, just like throwing in footage as we talk or whatever. We'll see. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this week. We'll see you guys next week. GameFace Freestyle is up and out.